Hey everyone, and welcome to Who Cares? And this time we're going to be talking about the 25th anniversary season, which is also the penultimate season of the classic series. So after this, we only have one last reflection on the classic series before we're done, and that is season 25, which is four stories, as were the last two seasons. And yeah, so we're going to be talking about the four stories: Remembrance of the Daleks, Happiness Patrol, Silver Nemesis, and Greatest Show in the Galaxy. So let's begin with well, it's not the 25th anniversary story, but a lot of people would like it to be. It's the
Yeah,
story of the season, Remembrance of the Daleks, which we'll see the last time we see the Daleks in the classic series and Davros as well. So, Alan, give us your thoughts on the first story in this season, Remembrance of the Daleks.
Okay. Just a little request though. I'm wondering for this hangout if I could possibly go second, maybe, because I think I might disagree with you two on a couple of stories, and it just might be better for me to go second for this hangout. Is that okay?
well, I don't want to go first because I might miss something, and you guys are better at jogging my memory. So, if that's all right, can I go either second or last?
I mean, I can go first, but I might be kind of like the sour puss about this
Hmm,
first story, and I know it's an acclaimed
yeah.
story, but okay.
I mean,
Maybe
Jack,
there. I
Jack always go first.
Okay. Or let's see.
Well, well, I mean, it
I,
depends.
all right, I'll go. I'll go. Okay, fine. All I could do was ask. Okay, Remembrance of the Daleks. Like I said, I'm very aware that Remembrance of the Daleks is a very acclaimed story from the Sylvester McCoy era, and I know a lot of people really like this story, and that's fine. I respect that. And I let me say this: there are definitely things in Remembrance of the Daleks that I do like and that I do appreciate. This is definitely a way better story than, say, Time in the Ranny or Delta and the Bannermen. That's for sure. And McCoy is good. However, I don't mean to be the sourpuss of the three of us regarding this story, but I've always thought Remembrance of the Daleks is just okay. And again, I realize I'm in the minority. Again, I acknowledge a lot of people like this story a lot, and that's fine. But I've always felt, for my money, and when I look back at the Sylvester McCoy era, that Remembrance of the Daleks for me personally is just a average Doctor Who story that falls right down the middle. Although I know, lots of people like this story. Okay, I get it. What I do like in Remembrance of the Daleks, I think the Daleks themselves are great in this story. We're seeing a whole slew of Daleks. Apparently, the Daleks are having some sort of civil war in this story. So you got the gray Daleks, you've got black Daleks. I think you've got like white Daleks, if memory serves me right. And there's even a military style Dalek that's built in the style of a tank. It's like a tank version of a Dalek, which is really cool. And also, it has to be said that this is the Doctor Who story where the Daleks finally learn how to levitate, how to fly. There had always been that long-standing joke about the Daleks that all you have to do to escape a Dalek is to run up a flight of stairs. Not anymore. This is the first Dalek story where we see a Dalek float up a flight of stairs, levitate. It can literally fly. And some people think that Daleks having the ability to fly or levitate began with Christopher Eccleston as the Ninth Doctor. No, it began with this story, Remembrance of the Daleks. Um, so I did think that that was a really cool innovation that this story introduced. That this is the first one where the Daleks finally have the ability to levitate or fly, and running up a flight of stairs will no longer protect you from a Dalek. So that was good. I think the performances by everybody in this story are really good too. Sylvester McCoy, by this point, he's definitely comfortable and secure in his role as the Seventh Doctor, and I think he's really good in this story. Sophie Aldred, once again, she's great. as the ever reliable Ace. And she's. I also like the fact that she gets a hold of a baseball bat and she does some bashing with the Daleks with the baseball bat. Who you calling small? She bashes the Daleks with the baseball bat. That's fun. Um, I mean, there's a lot of location work in this story as well. And let's see, was there something else I want to mention about this story? Let's see. Oh yes, does this story? I think this story takes place in 1963, doesn't it? The year that the series began, right? Is it set in Potter's Lane again?
No, it's set in Coal Hill School, the school that Susan went to in the first story that Ian and Barbara taught at. Coal Hill School.
Okay, yeah, but it is set in 1963. Okay, so the year the show started. Okay, so there's that connection. And I'm sure another reason why they're doing this is because it's the 25th anniversary year of Doctor Who. So that's one way to celebrate the 25th anniversary is to have a story set in 1963, the year that the show began. All of that is good. Let's see. Terry Malloy returns in this story as Dalek creator Davros. He's good for the most part, although he doesn't really appear until the very end. There's like this big Emperor Dalek with like this huge dome head, big circular dome head. And then in the final episode, the dome head lifts up, and what do you know? It's Davros. Although I have to say, by this point, guys, I don't mind telling you, I wish the folks at the Classic Who series would realize you don't have to put Davros in every single Dalek story. I mean, I like the character. I mean, when he first appeared in Genesis of the Daleks, when he was brilliantly played by Michael Wisher. But I don't know, it seems like they seem to think from this point on, if we do a Dalek story, we have to put Davros in it. And I'm kind of getting a little tired of Davros appearing in every Dalek story. I'm glad when we get to the new series, they'll have several Dalek stories where we don't see Davros, and then Davros finally shows up again, which is fine. But by this point, I'm starting to get a little tired of Davros. I mean, I thought Terry Malloy was terrific as Davros. It's probably the very best performance he ever gave as Davros in the previous story, Revelation of the Daleks, where for the most part we just see him as this disembodied head in a glass jar on a console. And
sorry to interrupt. Can I ask how many times has Malloy played Davros? Is it 2 or 3? I forget.
Well, there was Resurrection of the Daleks, Revelation of the Daleks, Remembrance of the Daleks. So 3 times.
3 times. Who played him in Destiny of the Daleks?
Oh, I forget the name of the actor. I mean, he was all right.
David Gooderson.
Thank you.
Oh, thanks, Jack.
Okay, yeah. But I thought, yeah, Terry Malloy, I thought was his very best in Revelation of the Daleks, is that disembodied head in the glass jar, and his head can swivel around really fast, which I thought was a really chilling effect. And I thought Terry Malloy was at his most chilling. Here, though, the very end of the story where he's like begging the Doctor for his life, and that line like, "Oh, have pity on me." Oh, I just didn't like that line at all. I mean, that was pathetic.
He's not really in it that much either. He doesn't come into quite late in the story.
That's true. But when he shows, I mean, that "have pity on me" line. Oh, I just hate that line. That's terrible. But a couple of other beefs. Oh, and by the way, the supporting cast for this story is really good. Nobody really sticks out for me except maybe. Oh, there's a boy that Ace has a flirtation with in the story. Is the character's name
Mitch?
Harry? Or is that the character's name? It might be another character's name. I don't know. It's been a while since I've watched Remembrance of the Daleks, but he has some flirtation with a guy.
Oh, Mitch, is it? Or am I thinking of another story?
Yeah. Or but yeah, it turns out that he's like working with the Daleks or something like that. That's interesting. Oh yes, there is one cast member who does stick out, and that's Jasmine Breaks as a young girl who's only known as the Girl, and she's been taken over by the Daleks, and apparently she has the ability to shoot electrical bolts that kill.
So she's Emperor Palpatine.
Yeah, really, like she has like Emperor Palpatine powers in this story, but she's quite good. And how the Doctor and Ace finally save her and break her free of the Daleks' control. So she was quite good. She sticks out in my head. She and the guy playing the temporary boyfriend or flirtation that Ace has in this story. So there's definitely a lot of good things going on in this story. I mean, I like the design of all the Daleks. The location stuff is good. McCoy is great. Sophie Aldred is great. However, they do one thing in this story that I really don't like, and that is that at the end of this story, the Doctor defeats the Daleks by having their home planet of Skaro blown up. And the guy, dun, 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 and the guy who wrote this story, Ben Aronovich, there you go, I think that's how you pronounce his name, Ben Aronovich, he seemed to have overlooked one important thing, that the Daleks were not the only beings living on Skaro. If you know your Doctor Who history, you'll know that there were also these very kind humanoid beings named Thals living on the planet. We saw them in the very first Dalek story, The Daleks, with William Hartnell. We saw them again in my all-time favorite Doctor Who story, Planet of the Daleks, with John Pertwee. And we actually saw earlier versions of the Thals in Tom Baker's story, Genesis of the Daleks. They were there in that story as well. So this means that if there were any Thals living on Skaro when it blew up, then that basically means that the Doctor has committed genocide against the Thals. And you know the Doctor would never, ever commit genocide against any beings living on a planet, unless, of course, they're fucking evil like the Daleks and they deserve to be squashed. But he would never do that against the Thals. So I have to take it on faith in this story. I really, really have to take it on faith that the Doctor knew beforehand that there were no more Thals living on Skaro when it blew up. Maybe the Thals died out over time, but I don't believe that. I really do feel that the Thals escaped Skaro at some point in time. We saw in Planet of the Daleks that the Thals did learn how to fly spaceships, that they did have space flight capabilities in Planet of the Daleks. So I'm taking it on faith that a faction of Skaros got in their a faction of Thals, excuse me, Skaros, a faction of Thals got in their spaceships and escaped Skaro at some point in the past before Skaro blew up, and the Doctor knew that there were no more Thals on Skaro. But there was never any line, there's no 2 or 3 lines in the story of the Doctor telling us that there were no more Thals living on the planet when it blew up, and there should have been. Ben Aronovich, shame on you for overlooking that. So I'm taking it on faith that the Thals escaped from Skaro before the Doctor had it blown up, but still, the Doctor should have actually said something to that effect in this story, and he doesn't. And for me, that's a big, big writing mistake on the part of Ben Aronovich. I'm surprised nobody caught it. I'm surprised John Nathan Turner didn't catch that. But oh well. I think the only other criticism I have of this story is that there's still some parts of the plot that were a little confusing. This story also mentions a weapon called the Hand of Omega. I'm assuming they're talking about the villain Omega that we saw in the Three Doctors and Arc of Infinity, but I don't fully understand still what the weapon is about. I think there's one scene where the Doctor's trying to explain what the Hand of Omega is, and I still didn't understand it. So that's another criticism I have of it. So in conclusion, you guys, I mean, again, I totally acknowledge Remembrance of the Daleks is a very beloved story from Sylvester McCoy's era. I don't hate this story, for goodness sake. There are things in it that I really like, and I think the newly designed Daleks are cool, and that is cool that the Daleks finally have the ability to fly, to levitate, and all of that. McCoy is solid. Sophie Aldred is solid. But, Skaro blowing up without any acknowledgement from the Doctor that, the Thals were living on that planet, and no acknowledgement from the Doctor that the Thals, escaped from the planet. They're no longer living on the planet. I just would have liked some sort of reassurance from the Doctor that the Thals were no longer on Skaro when it blew up. Because, damn it, I love the Thals. I really love them. I really like them a whole lot. From the Daleks, the original story, and of course my personal fave, Planet of the Daleks. the Doctor should have said something about the falls, and he doesn't.
Yeah.
And like I said, yeah, and some parts of the plot were just a little confusing to me as well. And okay, Davros only appears at the very end, but he doesn't have to be in every single Dalek story, So put that all together, and for me personally, Remembrance of the Daleks kind of falls right down the middle. I just think it's an average Doctor Who story. Not horrible by any means. There's things in it that I do like and appreciate, but when I want to watch a Doctor Who story with Sylvester McCoy, I don't usually reach for Remembrance of the Daleks. That's just me. So
I personally find it very overrated. You just think it's okay.
Yeah, it's just average. Not horrible, but I can't quite give it a pass. I'm sorry. I do have some personal issues with it, despite the good stuff that's there. So on a scale of 1 to 10, I will give Remembrance of the Daleks a average 5 out of 10. I know I'm in the minority, but I know, but that's how I feel about it. So I'm sorry, guys. I'm sorry, but that's the best I can give Remembrance of the Daleks. 5 out of 10.
It's your opinion.
Yeah. It's way better than Time of the Ranny. It's way better than Delta and the Bannerman. That's for sure.
Well, that goes without saying.
Yeah. But 5 out of 10, that's the best I can give it. I'm sorry. So there you go.
Well, thanks for that, Alan. Now we move on to Ollie. Your thoughts on Remembrance of the Daleks, if you can remember it, that is. Remembrance.
Yeah. This is why I didn't want to go first. But thanks, Alan, for that. I'm going to have to respectfully disagree, but I can understand where he's coming from. But I really enjoyed this story. I wouldn't say it is quite as good as everyone says it is, but I still really like it. I think it's a very ambitious story in terms of the epic scope of it. It's quite it's a very action-based story, and there's a lot of great spectacle to appreciate in the story. And yes, the ending with blowing up Skaro could be seen as controversial, but more so for the stuff that kind of comes after this, like the TV movie kind of, disregarding the fact that Skaro was blown up, or it seems to have been sort of confused in the Doctor Who timeline, sort of in the canon timeline, about whether Skaro actually blew up or not. But whatever, put that to one side. You still have a great story here. McCoy, this is his best performance so far. He's definitely slotted into this role a lot more, and he is going in a darker direction, which I like, and I think his Doctor works in that regard. I don't know what the hell he was doing clowning around in the Time in the Rani, but, well, less said about that fucking rave, the better. Sophie Aldred as Ace. Well, Ace is Ace. That's all I have to say about that. She's amazing. She's really good. I'm not too fussed about her romantic storyline with, I forget the character's name. Is it Mitch? I can't remember the guy's name, but whoever that guy is. Yeah, I mean, it was okay, but it's not something. Sorry, go on.
Oh, do you mean Ace's love? Do you mean Ace's love story and her lover in this story, or?
I think the character, looking at Wikipedia, I think it's Sergeant Mike Smith. That's who she's having the flirtation
sorry.
with. So I was wrong. Not Harry. It's Sergeant Mike Smith. There you go.
Sorry, Mitch, Mike. Yeah, whatever. I got the name wrong, but thank you, Mike. Yeah, I think Mike's a decent enough character, but the romance or the romantic elements just seem to be kind of very neatly sprinkled, and it doesn't really go anywhere. So I don't think it was a necessary part of the plot, to be perfectly honest. I can kind of see where Alan is coming from in regards to Davros. I personally don't mind Davros being in this story, but I do agree maybe he was starting to become a bit overused, but I do like him. I like him as a villain. I think he's a very compelling villain. But in this particular story, however, I think Terry Malloy is arguably his best performance. I think he's really come into this role now, and he's toned it down, because before, certainly in Resurrection of the Daleks with Davison, he was just shouting all the time, and it was a bit hammy. I'm not gonna lie. And in Revelation of the Daleks, he was okay in that as well. But here, even though he doesn't get much to do in this one, I like his interactions with McCoy quite a lot. But that would be the one thing that really kind of brings the story down for me, is the fact that Davros is barely in it. Like he obviously he's built up to be, revealed as a twist, and I think it would have been better just to have him in there from the get-go, sort of plotting from the beginning. Because I think, to be honest, seeing the quality of the performance in this story, it's much better than what he did before. So I think it's a missed opportunity not having him in more of the story. But yeah, whatever. That's my one criticism. And also the girl, the actress that plays the girl, she's very good. I quite like her. I think she does a good job of being possessed. Although I don't know where the fuck those Sith lightning powers come from, but or whatever. Okay, I guess I'll have to deal with that. But yeah, and also, like, I think there are a couple of effect shots that do look a bit cheap. I mean, obviously the budget of the show was getting tightened, so I'm not surprised that this is the way. But yeah, it is kind of obvious how cheap that it looks. But however, what isn't cheap is the Daleks. They've clearly spent a lot of money on the Daleks, which is great. And like Alan said, it's like a Dalek civil war going on. There's like black, white, all different kind of color Daleks fighting each other, which is very, very interesting. And I think that's what sets this story apart from the others, is that it's a Dalek civil war, that they're fighting each other. Like, you never see Daleks fight each other, very, very rarely. So I think this story definitely tries to do something different. And to be honest, it should have been the 25th anniversary story. I really think it should have been. But yeah. And the music is actually quite good. I think the music is much better than the previous season. I mean, oh god, the music in fucking Delta and the Bannerman, Jesus Christ. But, yeah, that's all I can remember. I mean, I think the supporting cast were good. They did a good job. So yeah, I really like this story. I think it's a really good, very well polished, very well directed story. I don't think it's perfect, but Ace with a baseball bat, what more do you want? So I'll probably give Remembrance of the Daleks a very strong 9 out of 10. Not perfect, but very good. Very good start. And for me, this is the first great Sylvester McCoy story. After the previous 4 stories, which for me, well, the first 3 were crap, and then the Dragonfire was just okay. It is a breath of fresh air to have this one. Because to me, I know Alan thinks this is just below average, but for me, this is where the era really picks up and starts to kind of turn into something pretty special. So obviously, they're still working out the kinks, season 25, but they're on their way to good things. Let's just say that, even though the show's going to be cancelled, the certainly the direction of the show is on its way up. So it bodes well. Anyway, that's my thoughts.
Okay, thanks. Now we come on to the next story in the season. For me, that is
well,
the Daleks.
Jack, what about your opinion of Remembrance?
What about you?
Yeah, that's what I meant. Sorry, I'll start that again. Okay, Remembrance. Oh, sorry. Okay, Remembrance of the Daleks. Well, we're now on my thoughts on this story, and I'm in more of an agreement with Ollie on this one. I really like Remembrance of the Daleks. I think this is the first genuinely great Doctor Who story in a very long time. And this story had a lot, going for it, because it was the 25th, season of the show, and it brought back the Daleks. And this really could have turned out bad. This could have, been a really bad Doctor Who story and a crap return for the Daleks. And we last saw them 3 years ago, Colin Baker, but I think this is a great return for the Daleks, and I consider this the true 25th anniversary of the show, to me anyway. I mean, Silver Nemesis is the real 25th anniversary story, sadly, but I consider this the true 25th anniversary story. And the way it begins, I think, is excellent. I don't know if you guys have mentioned this, but the beginning where you got that shot of Earth and you hear the speeches of John F. Kennedy and Martin Luther King saying, "I have a dream," and then we cut to that shot of the Dalek mothership heading towards Earth, and then you go into the
Oh,
title.
sorry, I forgot to mention it. I couldn't remember.
Yeah,
Thanks
couldn't
for
remember.
Yeah. I haven't seen the story in a while, so I'm not surprised that I forgot about that. Yeah, sorry, I forgot.
You guys couldn't remember Remembrance. It's called Remembrance of the Daleks, but yeah.
There's the
Wah,
walking
wah, wah.
encyclopedia of Doctor Who.
Oh, a feisty one. Yeah.
It's a compliment.
Yeah, no, I was joking. But anyway, no, I thought that was a great way to get into the story. And then, you're introduced to the Doctor and Ace, and I do like McCoy's outfit in this season a lot better than what he wore in season 24. I mean, he wears the same outfit, but his coat and hat, they're a lot, they look a lot better than in season 24. His hat was all like mangled up, and his coat was all sort of messed up, and it looked a bit shit. But here, he looks a lot better, and you see a lot more of the darker side of the Doctor in this story, like McCoy's darker side. Like we see, throughout the story that the Doctor, he's essentially becoming this darker incarnation, which we hadn't really seen in 24. Season 24, I think McCoy was trying to sort of impersonate Troughton, who was his favorite Doctor, and the comedy I don't really think worked for McCoy. And Andrew Cartmel, who was the script editor who came on with McCoy's first season, he wanted the show to become darker and the Doctor to become more mysterious, and he wanted to get the show back to basics and get it back to what made it work, because the last 3 seasons of the show were pretty awful, in my opinion. Season 22, 3, and 4. But yeah, so here he goes for a darker edge of the Doctor, and I think that works. And I like Ace in this story as well. Sophie Aldred as Ace, I think this is one of her best performances. And we see at one point that she meets the character Mike. And I actually think the love story here between Ace and Mike works, because Ace, she fancies him, and he says, "Oh, do you want to go to the pictures? Do you want to go see, a film?" And then later on, we find out that Mike is part of this fascist group, and he's a racist, and he says to
Truly,
Ace,
deeply love you, Mike.
no, but I mean, it turns out he's a fascist and a racist, and he, tells Ace later on, "Oh, you got to look after your own." And you kind of feel bad for Ace, because he realizes that he's not a good guy. And so I thought that was good. And there are some interesting references to attitudes towards black people and minorities back then, because there's a bit where Ace, because it's set in the early 60s, she finds this sign that says "No coloreds," and she takes it off. And originally Andrew Cartmel said she should have ripped it up, and he said he kind of missed an opportunity there, but she takes the sign out of the window. And yeah, I mean, back then you'd get signs that said, "No Irish, no blacks, no dogs," and a lot of houses in England back in the 50s and 60s. But so I thought that was well done. I like the fight as well in Totter's Lane. They do go back to I.N. Foreman, the scrapyard, although, funnily enough, they spell I.N. Foreman wrong. They forget to put in the E. But nonetheless, that was great. And there's a fight with a Dalek, where the Dalek's killing everyone. And I do think Russell maybe got some inspiration from this story, because the Dalek laser effect, this is the first time that we've seen the skeleton of the person when the Dalek shoots them. And yeah, I think maybe Russell took some inspiration from that. But it's nice to see this like military unit fighting the Daleks. And I like the bit where the Doctor calls Captain Gilmore Chunky. He calls him Chunky Gilmore, and that's actually a nickname that they came up for Gilmore, because his gun was very big and chunky. And at one point, I think he calls him Brigadier, and he's like, Group Captain Gilmore. And I like the bit he's like, where the Doctor says, "Oh, you're dealing with things you don't understand here. You're dealing with the Daleks." And afterwards, we see that I like the line where the Doctor says, "Ugh, humans." That was quite good. And there's a Dalek who comes out of the scrapyard, and I like the bit where the doctor says to Ace, "So Ace, give me some of that Nitro 9 that you're not carrying," and he uses it to blow up the Dalek. I thought that was great. And you do some interesting characters here. Like I like the character of the woman who looks like Barbara in this. I think her name's Allison, or yeah, I think it's Professor Rachel Jensen. That might be her name. She kind of looks like Barbara in this, and she finds the doctor a bit mysterious, and he knows all this stuff. And I like that he's working with the military here. It's kind of like a unit, relationship going on here. The soundtrack here is great as well. I really like the soundtrack, and the pacing I think is very good for 4 parts. It flies by. I also like the references to William Hartnell. There's that bit where the doctor comes to collect the Hand of Omega, and the guy said, "Oh, you told me it was a man with white hair, and an elderly gentleman," which is a nice reference to William Hartnell. And it's interesting what the doctor's doing with the Hand of Omega. Like we see, he brings it to a graveyard and he buries it. And it turns out that the Hand of Omega is this weapon that he can use against the Daleks. So it's interesting how the doctor is manipulating people in this story. And the story itself, there's some interesting characters like Ratcliffe. Like we find out that he's a fascist, and he said, "Oh, Britain was on the wrong side during the last war, during World War II," and he's working with the Daleks. And there's an interesting character here. There's a headmaster, and he's played by the same actor who was in Pyramids of Mars and also Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. He played Hitler. He's very good here as the headmaster. You see at one point that he knocks Ace out, and a Dalek's coming up the stairs, and I think that's a cliffhanger to part 1. Where we see the Dalek go up the stairs, and a lot of people say that the Dalek started levitating in Dalek, and I think the reason why they say that is because remember, the Daleks at the time was the least viewed Dalek story. It was the least watched Dalek story of all time up until that point. So I think that's the reason why a lot of people, said that Dalek was the first one where they levitated. But I mean, they were originally going to levitate in Revelation of the Daleks, but they didn't, they couldn't do that, so they had Davros levitate instead. And it's interesting the Daleks that they have in the story. Like you got the Imperial Daleks, which are these white and gold Daleks, which we also saw in Revelation of the Daleks, and you got the Renegade Daleks, which are the grey Daleks. And the Imperial Daleks, they're loyal to the Emperor Dalek, which is Davros. The white and gold Daleks, they're loyal to Davros, and the Renegade Daleks are loyal to the Supreme Daleks. So they're both fighting each other in the story. And, there's an interesting sequence where the Daleks are fighting each other and they blow up this gate. And apparently they use so much explosives that they set off like fire alarms in the vicinity, which is quite interesting. So there's a lot of action going on here, which I appreciate. I also like the scene where Ace gets to use a rocket launcher. I thought that was awesome. We see at one point she uses a rocket launcher against the Dalek. And originally in the script, the Doctor was going to use the rocket launcher, but, McCoy thought that the Doctor using a rocket launcher didn't really suit his character, so Ace fires it instead, which I think worked better. And you have that great scene where she encounters the Dalek, and the Dalek says, "Oh, small human female sighted," and she's like, "Oh, who are you calling small?" And she just attacks this Dalek with a baseball bat, and she destroys its eye stalk and really batters it. And it's a great moment. We see that she jumps through a window. So, I mean, there's a lot of action in this story, which is really appreciated. And I like the references to the first Doctor Who story. Like, you got the return of Coal Hill School, which I think is really cool. And, you've got this scene where Ace, she reads a book about the French Revolution, which Susan was reading in the first story. So I like the callbacks to the original series, the original story. And going back to Coal Hill was really cool. And you've got this creepy girl throughout the story, and she's like saying, "Oh, 5, 6, 7, 8, there's a doctor at the gate," and she's quite creepy. And we find out that she's working for the Daleks. I mean, they've got a mind control over her. And there's one scene where she, you think it's Davros, but it's in fact this little girl in the chair wearing this helmet. And we find out that the Daleks need the imagination of the child to program their computers, which I thought was pretty cool. But yeah, I mean the story, the pacing here is really great. I also love the appearance of the Dalek shuttle that we see in, I think, part two or part three. And instead of getting a cheap model, they actually get a full-sized spaceship in the playground of this school, which looks fantastic. I mean, it still looks great even today. This is before the days of CGI, and instead of it just being this cheap toy model, they got an actual full-size spaceship model on the playground. So that was really awesome. And I like the scene where the Dr. McCoy gets the umbrella and he's using it as a zip line, and he knocks out this Dalek and he says, "Oh, I may have gone a little bit too far." So that was really great. And the story itself, it has a great pace to it. The Dalek action here is very good. I also like the reference to the first story that we see that Ace is watching TV. And just before she leaves, the announcer says, "And now on BBC One, the start of a new science fiction show, Doctor," and then it cuts, which is really nice. I really like that. It's a nice sort of breaking the fourth wall in joke there. I really enjoyed that. And I like the Supreme Dalek in this as well. You see the Supreme Dalek, which is this like black and silver Dalek in the story. And the scene where the Doctor he talks to the Emperor Dalek and it reveals that it's Davros. I thought that was a very interesting scene. And McCoy's great, where he says, "Oh, I'm the keeper of the legacy of Rassilon, and the president, president-elect of the Time Lords." And that whole scene where he's talking to Davros, and we see the Emperor's Davros, and they're trying to make it a big reveal that it's Davros in the Emperor Dalek shell, and it doesn't really work because you can kind of tell that that's Terry Malloy's voice, even when they put a sort of modulator on it. And Davros here, he looks very different than what we saw in the previous stories. He's now literally just this like torso and head inside this Emperor shell, and he's got these wires around him. And the Doctor says, "Oh, I see you've discarded the last vestiges of your human form, and still no improvement." And I love that bit where he's pretending to Davros. He's like, "Oh, please, Davros, don't use the hand. Please don't." And Davros is like, "Oh, no, Doctor, you begin to fear." And that very famous line. He's like, where Davros says, "Oh, the Daleks shall be all powerful. Conquer the galaxy. Crush the lesser races. Unlimited rice pudding, etc., etc." Very famous line there from McCoy, the rice pudding, unlimited rice pudding. That was quite funny. So McCoy here, he does have his funny moments, but he's definitely darker as well. And I like the bit where he uses the Davros uses the hand, but it backfires on him. The Doctor sends it to Skaro, and it destroys Skaro's son. And afterwards, we see that it's heading towards a Dalek mothership, and Davros is like, "Please have pity on me, Doctor." And Doctor says, "Oh, Davros, I have pity for you." That's a great scene. And I did like some of the stuff there with Ace as well. We see at one point that she's cornered by three Daleks, and that was a pretty intense cliffhanger. And we find out that the Imperial Daleks, they have like bits of cybernetics stuck to the mutants, which is interesting. And we do have one of my favorite scenes in Doctor Who history where the Doctor's talking to that guy in the cafe. And funnily enough, the guy in the cafe, the Jamaican guy or whatever, he's actually an English actor, and he would go on to appear as the butler in Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. But I do like that scene where the Doctor is like, he's talking about, having tea, and he's like, "Oh, do you want sugar?" And he's like, "Decision, have tea or not to have, have sugar in my tea or don't." And then he says that great, he has that great speech where he says, "Every decision creates ripples like a huge boulder dropped in a lake. The heavier the decision, the bigger the wave, and the bigger the consequence, it ripples off its bank." And that's a great scene. So the story has a lot of great moments there. And that girl, yeah, we see that she has like electrical powers. And there's that scene where she confronts Ace in the house and she kills Mike. She kills him dead. And then we see that the Doctor, he encounters the Supreme Dalek at the end. And I do like that scene where he literally talks the Supreme Dalek to death. He says, "Oh, your planet is destroyed. All the other Daleks are gone. Even your creator Davros is dead." And the Dalek's like, "Oh, does not compute, does not compute," and the Dalek goes into complete overload because it's the last one. And we see afterwards that it's it turns into dust. And I like the bit with the Doctor. He grabs his umbrella and he says, "Oh, ashes to ashes, dust to dust," and then he blows the dust off his umbrella. That's a great moment. So you're definitely seeing that darker version of the Doctor come through here a lot. And there was a scene they cut out where the Doctor says to Davros, "So Davros, I'm far more than just another Time Lord." But JNT decided to veto that scene because it was, it revealed too much about the Doctor. It was too mysterious. So yeah, there's that, and the ending of the story I think is pretty interesting, where you see the little girl. She manages to break free of the of the Dalek, and we see that she's with Ace, and yeah, I mean that little child actor is very good, and it's funny as well. The headmaster, when he gets killed, I think he dies in the cemetery as a heart attack or something, or the Daleks kill him, and he's lying next to a thing that says "Rest in Peace," which is quite funny. But the ending of the story, I think, is very, very powerful, where the Doctor and Ace, they're at Mike's funeral, and Ace is there. And funny enough, she's got like a Batman earring on, which is kind of funny. But I like the bit where Ace says, "Oh, Doctor, did we do good?" And the Doctor replies with, I think, one of the best lines in Doctor Who history, and one of the best ways to end a story, where she says, "Oh, Doctor, did we do good?" And the Doctor says, "Time will tell. It always does." And they leave after the funeral. So I thought that was a really great way to end the story. So in conclusion, Members of the Daleks, I don't really have any flaws with this. I can't think of any flaws. It's the first Doctor Who story, the first generally great one in a very, very long time. It is slightly overrated. I mean, I wouldn't say it's like one of my favorites of all time, but it's definitely one of McCoy's best. And it's the best Dalek story and the best Doctor Who story we've had since, I'd say, season 21. And it really is fantastic. I think the soundtrack's great, McCoy's great, the Daleks are great, Davros is great. There's a lot of emotional stuff going on there as well, and some nice references to the past. And I think Aronovich's script here is really great. So yeah, in conclusion, I'm going to close off. This is the first Doctor Who story since the case of Androzani that I'm going to give a 10 out of 10. So, yeah, great start to this. Yeah. Okay, so now we move on to the second story of this season, the Happiness Patrol. Yeah, who could take a sunrise?
Cue that music.
The Candyman, the Candyman.
Yeah.
Candyman.
Yeah.
I'm
Candyman.
be in a world of pure imagination.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like a packet of licorice all sorts, this story gets a very mixed response from the fans. There's some fans who really like it, and there's some fans who don't. So yeah, Alan, give us your thoughts on the Candyman, and give us your thoughts on the Happiness Patrol.
Okay. Yeah, the Happiness Patrol, which I actually watched again a couple of nights ago because I knew we were going to be talking about this season. Yeah, you're right. The Happiness Patrol gets a very mixed reaction from fans. Perhaps it's I guess you guys call it the Marmite. It's the Marmite episode from Sylvester McCoy's era, I suppose, that either you like it or you don't. But I have to say, I've always enjoyed the Happiness Patrol. I've always liked this one very much. For me, it's one of McCoy's better stories. I'm not going to say it's a classic. It's not a perfect story, but it is one of my favorites from McCoy's era. I have to admit. So there you go. That's two Sylvester McCoy stories that I like. so far. The other one being Dragonfire from the previous season. But yeah, I just think it's a very clever, very amusing satire, I guess, on society, and I like the idea of the story, the concept that this is a society. Um, Hold on, my cat's meowing. Come here, Sonny. Come here. Calm down. There you go. I like that. Yeah, this is set on a planet called Terra Alpha, and I like the idea that it's a society where it's the law that you have to be happy, and if you're caught being unhappy, you're gone. I thought that was really cool. Although it may not be 100% original, because I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the Patrick Troughton story, the Macra Terror, had kind of a similar plot where the people in that colony had to be happy as
Yeah.
well. I
It did,
think,
yeah.
yeah, I think if memory serves me right.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
But I don't think the Happiness Patrol is a ripoff of the Macra Terror. Goodness no. But let's see, the guy who wrote Happiness Patrol, Graham Curry. But you know, okay, hold on. Hit the pause button. My cat's making noise. Hold on. I'll be right back. Hold on. I'm going to put Sunny in the other room. I'll be right back, guys. Hold on.
Okay, you can start again on the story if you want.
Okay, sorry about that. Yeah, he was meowing, and I had to put him in the other room. Okay, I'll just start again. It's a very. I'll just continue. Uh, but I think overall it's a very enjoyable story. I mean, I don't think the guy who wrote it, Graham Curry, was ripping off the Macra Terror. I don't think the Macra Terror even entered his mind. All the more so because the Macra Terror is a lost Doctor Who story. We have it in audio form, and of course, they recently did an animated version of it using that audio. But so I don't think Graham Curry ripped off the Macra Terror, but still, I think it's a really neat idea. This society where you have to be happy, that it's the law, and there'll be consequences if you're caught being unhappy. I thought that was really cool. I think it's a very colorful Doctor Who story. I like the fact that it's entirely shot in the studio. There's no location footage in this. It's all done in the studio. So for me, it looks like a Doctor Who story. It feels like a Doctor Who story. I think it's also really good that it's only 3 episodes long, so it goes by pretty quickly. I think all the characters in the story are wonderful. I think the supporting cast are great. Very colorful characters, colorful kind of a story. I like the atmosphere to it. Sylvester McCoy is terrific in this story, and he is allowed to cut loose a little bit in this story, and do some of his more humorous kind of stuff that he likes to do. Okay, so he's playing the spoons again. He even gets to sing for a little bit, just for a few seconds. He gets to sing the old standard As Time Goes By, just a few lines from it, and tell some jokes in this one as well. Like when he's like getting everybody in the street to laugh, and that's a very amusing scene. But there's also moments of good. He gets some good serious moments. Everybody talks about the scene in this story where the Doctor talks a sniper out of shooting him. Shoot a gun and a life. Is it worth it or something like that? I mean, I don't remember the exact words, but basically he's facing the sniper and just face to face and just telling him, okay, good, okay, fine, pull the trigger, end my life. And the sniper can't quite do it. He just can't do it. And the Doctor just takes the gun from him. And that's a great moment for Sylvester McCoy. That is indeed one of his very best moments as the Doctor, I admit. But yeah, McCoy is terrific in this. Sophie Aldred, great. She's solid as always as Ace. She's quite good as well. Ace is Ace, as Ollie says. And I also think they get a wonderful supporting cast here. For example, another thing that appeals to me about the Happiness Patrol, is that you have some really nice looking ladies in this story. They make up the Happiness Patrol themselves. It's all these women. They're dressed in pink, and they're dressed in high heels and mini skirts, and yeah, I approve. Even the ones that look kind of older than some of the others, but you know, all the ladies are looking very lovely in this story, so no complaints from me there. And of course, they're all very talented actresses besides. Of course, the big one that I have to mention in this story is Sheila Hancock playing Helen A, who's the leader of the colony, and she is great. I mean, she has this wonderfully like devilish smile to her when she talks, and you know, she has this little dog-like creature. It's not a dog, but it's like a dog-like creature named Fifi that she loves. He's like, "Oh, yes, Fifi, yes, Fifi, have a little chocolate, yes, my little Fifi." But she has like this devilish smile about her when she's talking on the television or talking to the colonists. And by the way, the ones who are caught being unhappy are known as killjoys, and they're the ones that get sent to well, I guess that their punishment is to get sent to the Candyman's candy shop, where they're basically executed via candy. And of course, we will talk about the Candyman in a moment. I will get to him, but yeah, Sheila Hancock is just wonderfully delightful and devilish as Helen A. And she looks good in her red attire, I thought, but she's quite good. She's very memorable. Then you've got some of the other ladies who play the Happiness Patrol are quite good. You know, Georgina Hale as Daisy Kay, Leslie Dunlop as Susan Q, and she plays the member of the Happiness Patrol who isn't quite happy being a member of the Happiness Patrol. It's like she and A strike up a friendship. And Leslie Dunlop, she appeared previously in the Peter Davison story Frontios. So she reappears here as Susan Q, and she's quite likable. Let's see, there's Rachel Bell as Priscilla P. Yeah, so all of these ladies playing the Happiness Patrol members, you know, they're looking good and they're acting good. And also, let's see, it's nice to see John Normington here as Trevor Sigma. You should recall John Normington was in Peter Davison's classic finale, The Caves of Androzani, as Morgus, but here he appears in a more lighter role as Trevor Sigma, a man doing some, I guess, some census work, I think, on the planet. It's a lighter role for him, but still, it's really good to see him. And by the way, I have to throw this in before I forget. I actually had the pleasure of seeing John Normington live in person when I went to England back in the summer of 1990. And they were doing a production at the Royal National Theatre of the play The School for Scandal. And John Normington was in the cast. So I actually got to see John Normington live. And yes, he was a very good actor. I think he passed away a few years ago, but he was a very good actor. And it was great to see him live in that show, and nice to see him here in the Happiness Patrol. There's also a character named Earl Sigma, who's basically a bluesman. You know, he walks the streets of Alpha Sigma playing his harmonica. You know, he likes the blues. He's played by Richard D. Sharp. It's a good performance. I won't say it's a great performance, but you know, it's decent enough. You know, he's likable. He's an amusing character, and I thought he and Sylvester McCoy had good rapport in this one. And of course, I have to mention the Candyman. Yes, the Candyman, who's basically this robot made of candy and electrical parts. And the poor Candyman, he's like the Rodney Dangerfield of Doctor Who characters. You know, he don't get no respect at all. You know what I'm saying? He doesn't get that much respect, but he's like Rodney Dangerfield. You know, I don't get no respect at all. It's like, you know, my wife. You know, no, but he's not a particularly well-liked character because I think a lot of people just think he looks much too silly. He's this overgrown robot made of candy and electrical parts. But I'm telling you, man, I like the Candyman. I like him. I think he's funny. I think he's amusing. He's played by David John Pope, who has my utmost respect because that looks like that must have been a really uncomfortable costume to get in. And I don't know how he managed to see in that thing. It's like the Candyman's head seems to be like this big, giant gumdrop with spinning eyes that you know spin really, really fast. This mechanical thing that makes his eyes spin really fast. and his midsection is like made of like a hard candy, and yeah, that's cute. That's cute. I mean, Ollie described in his review that he looks like a licorice all sort. I guess he does. And by the way, I need to try out some licorice all sorts. I think that's another British candy like Jelly Babies that you can only get online. I've looked it up, but I wouldn't mind trying some licorice all sorts. But yeah, he looks like he's made of candy, made of licorice as well as electrical parts. And obviously, they altered David John Pope's voice, so he has this really electronic kind of voice to him. But I think he's funny, you guys. I mean, he amuses me. Maybe he doesn't amuse you guys, but he amuses me. And
I have to ask you though, like when you look at him though, do you really think that he belongs in Doctor Who? Surely he'd be better as some like kids TV character.
oh, well, let me put to you this way. Regarding that, this is the Sylvester McCoy era. Yeah, he seems to fit in with Sylvester McCoy's era just fine. I don't know if he would look good alongside Tom Baker or or John Pertwee or
Could you imagine him with? Oh God, I was going to say, could you imagine him with Christopher Eccleston? What are you going to do to me, eh, Candyman?
yeah. Yeah, okay, I admit, but with Sylvester McCoy, I think he fits like a glove. I mean, it's like the James Bond movie Moonraker. I think could only work with Roger Moore and none of the other Bonds because of the silliness in it, the wonderful silliness that I think is in Moonraker. But I think it could only work. Yeah, but I think it could only work with Roger Moore, and the Candyman is probably a character that could only work with Sylvester McCoy's Doctor. Maybe Patrick Troughton, because McCoy kind of bases his Doctor on Troughton's performance, I suppose. But I think with McCoy, the Candyman fits in fine, and I like it when he gets frustrated and he's shouting at his I guess his creator named Gilbert. Now Gilbert, you know, I just think he's funny. I think he's an amusing fellow, the Candyman, and I like him. I think he's funny. What else can I say about him? But I realize not everybody likes the Candyman, and that's fine. I guess he's just one of those characters that either you like him or you don't. But I like him. What can I say? And again, I tip my hat to the actor who plays him, David John Pope, for putting on the outfit and for performing the character, even though his voice is electronically altered. But I do think that this is a very amusing story, you guys. I think Graham Curry wrote an enjoyable, breezy, satire kind of story. And again, I mean, maybe if the story had been 4 episodes, maybe I would have liked it less. But I think at 3 episodes, it goes by pretty quickly. For me, it doesn't outstay its welcome, and I like it a lot. I think it's very good. I mean, there's other memorable moments when one of the Killjoys is caught and he's sent to the candy shop for execution, and he dies by what, strawberry fondue or something. He's like they dunk him in a tube that has all this strawberry goulash or whatever, and it's like, oh, what a mess. But it's very effective. I think it works. I like all the scenes that are shot in the big pipes underneath the city. I thought all that stuff was done very well. It's a very amusing Doctor Who story. I mean, again, I look at the Happiness Patrol as a satire, and on that level, I think it's very entertaining. I won't say it's a perfect story. I won't say it's a classic. I mean, the story does have an air of silliness to it, I suppose. And for me to give a silly Doctor Who story like the really high marks, as I do for, say, The Horns of Nimon with Tom Baker, even though I know not everybody likes The Horns of Nimon, but for a silly Doctor Who story for me to proclaim it a classic, I mean, or a near classic, I mean, it really has to have an extra special something about it for me to really give it the high marks. The Happiness Patrol doesn't quite have that extra special something about it, but that doesn't mean I don't like it. Not at all. I think it's a very good, very entertaining story. And this is one of a handful of Sylvester McCoy stories that I do like a lot. And when I want to watch a Doctor Who story with McCoy, chances are I may pull out the Happiness Patrol because I do like this one very much. I think it's amusing. I think it's clever. Again, I appreciate the script by Graham Curry. Chris Clowe's direction is good. Colorful characters, good performances from everybody, McCoy, Sophie Aldred, and the supporting cast. And gosh darn it, I do like the Candyman. I think he's a very funny, amusing fellow. So, so on a scale of 1 to 10, I'm going to give the Happiness Patrol a very affectionate 8 out of 10.
Well, can I just say
Okay.
that's very sweet of you.
But thank you, Ollie.
Okay, and now we move on to Ollie with
Candyman. Oh, the Candyman.
Damn it! I was gonna play the song. Oh, never mind. Thank you for playing it. Oh God. Unfortunately, my sweets are a little sour on this one. Oh, fuck me! What the? This is one of the weirdest.
got a moldy.
Huh?
So I was gonna say you got a moldy packet of licorice all sorts for this one.
Yeah, definitely. Look, fair enough, Alan. You know, you're entitled to your opinion. That's fine, but I personally just don't get it. I don't like this story. It's not the worst story in the classic series. It's not that bad, but for me, it's probably the worst of the season, just based on the silliness. I mean, did they really think this would be a good idea, the Candyman? Because the actual idea of the story is good. Like that's one thing I can praise about it, is the idea of the story, and that it is a story that deals with emotion and the concept of emotion, and how these people live their lives, or how they choose to live their lives through emotional interactions. I think the premise is really good, but for me it's the execution. Once again, we go back to Campy Land, and I wouldn't be adverse to that, but it just feels like they, once again, J&T doesn't know what the fuck he wants to do with this show anymore. Like, we thought in the previous story that we were taking things in a darker direction, and yet with this, bar a couple of moments, feels completely derivative of everything they're trying to do. I mean, which is why I still think that the season 25 is a very confused season in terms of tone. It's still tonally confused, and as a season. So that's what really disappoints me the most, is that they had a great tone in Remembrance of the Daleks, and they've just squandered it here. It's a real shame. I mean, they are trying to take the story seriously and have fun with it at the same time, but I think they go too far with the campiness and the very idea of the Candyman. I mean, okay, I can see what they were doing. I guess they were trying to make it somewhat fun and appealing for kids, but it is just the silliest Doctor Who villain ever. It's easily one of the worst Doctor Who villains of all time. I'm sorry. I mean, I know Alan likes him. Yeah, and the voice for me is really annoying. He's just shouting all the time, and it's just like, okay, we get it, and it's. I mean, the design of him is stupid as well. He is a walking, talking licorice all sort, and as I said in my review, yeah. So, I think the story is a complete waste of potential. It could have been so much better. Like, they could have executed it so much better, but no, they kind of took the, I don't know, they were just, they didn't know what they wanted to do. I think the script is very, the script isn't bad, but again, it's the execution of said script which really ruins it. But that being said, I like McCoy and Sophie Aldred, so I give points for that. Those two are very good as the Doctor and Ace, and like you say, there is that moment with the sniper or whatever, and the Doctor has that sort of moral debate about taking a life and when not to take a life. I thought that was a good piece of drama, and if the whole story was like that, then it would have been amazing. But yeah, I'm sorry. I mean, what can I say? I think the story is kind of a mess, and also the is it Helen, the main character, the sort of villainess who has the
Helen
A, yeah, who has Fifi the dog or whatever the fuck that creature was. Yeah, that kind of got on my nerves as well. I just think the design is really weird. Like the whole the sets don't look very convincing, and I understand again the budget was being tightened, but it's just too noticeable. I mean, the Candyman's lair is it looks okay, but sort of the main sort of interior set, it just looks very obvious. Like when they first arrive on this planet, it doesn't look convincing enough to me, and I feel sorry for them. Because McCoy and Aldred, they really try and they really do try to make this work, but they give great performances. And for me, the supporting cast didn't really stick out either. And as I'm trying to remember more about this story, but I just can't. I think it's
I just remembered something. I just remembered something, guys. The TARDIS gets painted pink in this story. That was amusing. The TARDIS gets painted.
Oh
pink.
yeah, that was weird. The TARDIS was painted pink for no reason. Yeah, okay, fair enough. Yeah, I don't understand why that happened. Look, it's not like offensively bad or anything. It's not as bad as Time in the Rani or the Twin Dilemma or Delta and the Bannerman, but it's a shame because it's such a poorly executed story, and we're back in the realms of tonal confusion, and it ruins what they're trying to do with McCoy's Doctor. Like what I thought they were trying to do. It makes me question their intentions and I mean, what happened for it to end up like this? I've got no idea, but this season is tonally just all over the place. I mean, which is why I'm so thankful that season 26 will fare much better. So at least we know there's good to come. But I'm sorry, I call it the crappiness patrol. I'm standing by that. So I'm afraid I'm going to have to give this one a. I gave it a 2 in my review, but I'll give it a 3. I'll bump it up to a 3 because I think maybe I was a bit harsh, but still a 3 out of 10. That's nothing to rave about. But yeah, sorry, the crappiness patrol is a 3 out of 10 for me.
Thanks, and I think from what I remember of your review, you gave it 3 in your original review anyway. But yeah, the happiness patrol. Well, I didn't show this in my review of Remembrance, but I do have a special weapons Dalek here, which they used in Remembrance, which is pretty cool. So,
cool! That is cool.
The tank Dalek, yeah.
And
yeah,
sweet.
About the happiness patrol, I do have Bassets here, but they're sports mixtures. But yeah, Bassets who make jelly babies and licorice all sorts. So yeah.
Would you like a licorice all sorts?
Yeah, yes.
That's something I would have liked to have seen, actually. Seeing Tom Baker offer a jelly baby to the fucking Candyman.
Would you like a licorice all sort?
Would you like
that was funny. I suppose if Tom Baker offered a jelly baby to the Candyman, if he ate it, it would be cannibalism, but yeah. Yeah. But yeah, the happiness patrol, I can definitely understand where Ollie's coming from with this story. When I first saw the happiness patrol, I remember I was going on holiday and I was on the plane and it was a long journey and I got out the portable DVD player that I had and I put in the happiness patrol, and I remember when I first saw this, I thought it was crap. I really didn't like it. Like the campy tone to me was really jarring, but rewatching it for my review, like rewatching it a couple of times, I think this is a good story. It has its problems. It definitely has a lot of issues, but overall, I think the Happiness Patrol is a good story, and the way it begins, the way it begins is kind of interesting because you have this planet which is basically full of sad people. Like there's sad people on this planet, and Helen A, we see that she's forcing people to be happy. Like we see at the start, this woman is talking to this man, and she's saying, "Oh, I'm miserable," and he's saying, "Oh, we have a society of miserable people, where we can meet and start crying and be depressed. Everything that Helen A won't let us do," and she sort of agrees to this, and we see afterwards that the guy, he calls her out for being unhappy, and afterwards we see that the happiness patrol, they come and they take her away because she's not happy, and presumably they kill her, And you know what's interesting about the Happiness Patrol is originally they were gonna broadcast this in black and white. They were trying to go for like a noir feel with this story, like a film noir feel. That's why you have some of the sets that are like black and grey, and some of the characters here playing harmonicas and wearing like 1940s outfits like
Yeah.
fedoras.
Seems kind of fucking bizarre that they do that and then shove the fucking Candyman in there as well. It's like, what do they want? They don't know what they want to do.
Yeah, that's one thing I will say is like, you know, they're trying to go for like a film noir kind of feel, and then they add all this like campy stuff with the Candyman and things. I mean, I can kind of see what they're trying to do, but it comes across as a little bit muddled. And you know, McCoy, I think he's very good in this story. I think Sylvester McCoy is great as a doctor once again, and we do see at one point he starts laughing, and that was amusing. And yeah, we see that the TARDIS gets painted pink because the Happiness Patrol, you know, they want to make everything happy. And you know, I think on a surface level people see this story and they just see the campiness and they're like, oh, it's just a campy schmampy story. But that's only the surface level stuff. I mean, you know, the reason why all these characters are, you know, dressed up in ridiculous outfits and wearing pink, you know, and stuff like that is because you know, they're being forced to be happy. That, you know, they can't show any sadness, any emotion. So I mean, I think, you know, on a surface level, you see things like the Candyman. People see that in this story, and they're just like, "What the fuck is this crap?" But in reality, you know, um, that stuff is just surface level. You know, underneath, you know, they've got all this, you know, story about them being forced to be happy and they can't be sad. You know, they're called killjoys, and they get killed off if, you know, they start crying or whatever it is. And this story was meant to be a satire on the Margaret Thatcher government of the time. I mean, the character of Helen A, she's very similar to Margaret Thatcher. I mean, she, you know, she's saying, "Oh, you got to be good for the good of the people," and she was the prime minister of Britain at the time. And I think Thatcher was a very divisive prime minister. There's a lot of people who loved her and a lot of people that hated her. So it's kind of a satire on Margaret Thatcher. Like you've got her husband in this, who I guess is sort of a parody of Thatcher's husband in real life, Dennis. And you know, I mean, I think Sheila Hancock's very good actually as Helen A, and she realised that it was a satire of Margaret Thatcher, and she hated Thatcher, so that's why she sort of started parodying the character in this story. And one thing I will say though is the character of Fifi, like this dog that she has, it just looks crap. I mean, the prosthetic for Fifi looks ridiculous. And there's that one sequence where they're in this tunnel and they're being chased by Fifi, and it's just like sort of crawling on the ground really slowly, and then these like fake boulders drop on it, and it starts screaming, and oh god, that was really bad. And you know, the story itself, you have interesting, you know, things in here. Like, I do like the stuff with the Doctor and Ace, where we see that Ace is taken away, and they're gonna make her perform or whatever, and you know, there's a wanted poster for Ace, and that's one of the cliffhangers. That was pretty good. And we see that Ace talks to one of the Happiness Patrol, and she says, you know, I hate working for Helen A. You know, I wish I could be sad and miserable and all that. And you know, the characters here I think are pretty good. Like, you know, Helen A, Joseph C, Daisy K, Gilbert M, Susan Q, Priscilla, you know, Silas P, Harold V, all the different characters here. Like most of them are women who work in the Happiness Patrol, and I think they're good in this story. And I mean, you know, the outfits they wear are kind of ridiculous. I mean, they have these like pink wigs and you know, this ridiculous sort of makeup on their face, like white clown looking sort of makeup, and they do look quite silly. And I can understand on a surface level, people see this story and are like, you know, this is just a campy fuck fest, but it's a lot more. There's a lot more going on in there beneath the surface. And speaking of the villain here, one thing I have to say, which I cannot, you know, I cannot defend, even though I like the story, is the Candyman. I mean, you know, who can take a sunrise, sprinkle it in dew, you know.
Well, I admire Alan's defense, but
Yeah.
I mean, it's like Willy Wonka's Chocolate Factory, you know, just a shittier version.
Yeah. I just think the Candyman is one of the most ridiculous, probably the most ridiculous Doctor Who monster I've ever seen. Up there with the Vervoids and the Tetraps and the Absorbaloff from Love and Monsters. It's literally just a fucking walking, talking licorice allsort, like Ollie said. And in fact, Bassett's, when they saw this story, they decided to sue the BBC because the character, the Candyman, looked far too similar to Bertie Bassett. And the BBC decided afterwards that the Candyman could never return. And they did bring him back for a Paul McGann audio, but the Candyman looks completely different in that. He looks like some kind of creature with long nails. He looks a lot creepier. But the Candyman here is just ridiculous. It's literally just a walking, talking licorice allsort. And yeah, there he is.
Oh, in all of his glory. It looks like he has a Poirot mustache. I'm Detective LQ, Candyman.
Yeah, he's got spinning eyes, and a blue Bassett head. But yeah, I have had licorice allsorts, and they're quite nice. But
But I wouldn't want to eat that fucking thing.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's a robot anyway, so if you bit into it, it'd be fucking yeah. But yeah, I mean, the Candyman is just fucking ridiculous. I'm sorry. I mean, I like this story, but the Candyman, I could not defend. It's one of the worst Doctor Who villains. I mean, the fact is, it's just so ridiculous looking, and it has that stupid voice. Gilbert. It's just,
Yeah, it's almost a bit like Sill's voice in fucking what do you call it? Mind Warp. Answer! All the fucking shouting,
Yeah, but it's even worse than that. And the Candyman's just giving some really bad lines, like "I want my victims to die with smiles on their faces." And McCoy's like trying to.
I want to smile.
Yeah. Why so serious? Yeah, but I mean, I don't know. He's just a walking Bertie Bassett. He's fucking ridiculous. I mean, I'm just really, you go from Davros and the Master to the Candyman. Are you kidding me? Like, I'm glad they didn't bring him back after this. I mean, it's just terrible. And some of the lines here are just awful. Like, there's that one sequence where they get the Doctor in this bib and they put him in this chair, and they're going to give him a sweet that kills him. And like one of the characters says, "Oh, he makes sweets that kill." That line just, oh god, that's so bad. Like, there's a lot of cheese in this story. Funnily enough, the guy who wrote it, Graham Curry. I mean, God, could you imagine curry with, licorice allsorts? Ugh. But
yeah, of all the things in this world, that's not one that we want to taste.
Yeah, God, but yeah, I mean, I just think the Candyman. I think the reason why I don't like him as well, apart from how silly he is and how silly he looks and the stupid lines, is the fact that he doesn't kill anybody in the story. Like, he's such a useless villain. Like, at one point, the Doctor, he sticks him to the floor by pouring lemonade on his like marshmallow feet, and he gets stuck to the floor. And most of the story's just stuck to the floor. And sorry,
the thing about is him not killing people is that, I mean, he does have a sweet personality, doesn't he? So I don't know if they were trying to deliberately use that as a joke to make him more sympathetic, but I mean, who the fuck knows?
Yeah. No, I think, he's meant to be a bad guy and he's killed people before, but yeah, it's just he does nothing in the story. Like, the Doctor, he pours lemonade on the floor and, his marshmallow feet gets stuck to it, and then he spends most of the story.
Well, Jack, can you imagine, sorry to interrupt, if John Simmers, the Master, from the End of Time, he just fucking eats him, like when he ate the chicken. If he had the fucking Candyman instead, that would be funny.
Dinner time! Yeah, that would be weird, but yeah. And like I said, if Tom Baker offered him a jelly baby and he ate it, it would be cannibalism. But yeah, the Candyman is just so stupid, and like, literally, he does nothing. He doesn't kill anybody. He's no threat to the Doctor. He gets stuck to the floor for most of the story, and then when they unstick him by pouring water on the marshmallow to get rid of the sugar that sticks into the floor, like, it just becomes really stupid because you just have the Candyman running around after them, and he's such a useless villain. He's the most useless villain in the whole.
Well, when he's not
show.
Stuck to the floor, yeah.
Yeah, he's just so useless. He doesn't kill anybody. just gets stuck to the floor for most of it. He's the stupid voice. There's that bit where the doctor threatens him with a hot poker, and he opens up the fire, or whatever. He opens up the oven, and he says, "Oh, Ace, Ace will pierce this poker right through your soft marshmallow heart," or whatever it is, and just so stupid. I mean, it really is. That part of the story, I just think is so dumb. They could have just cut that out, because you had a good story here about the emotions and people, being forced to be happy. And saying that, I mean, it's nice to see John Normington in this story. I think he's good. I mean, we last saw him as Morgus, that prick in Case Van der Zanny, the main bad guy in that. So it's nice to have him here. He's this guy does like surveys or whatever. And I also like Earl Sigma, the guy who plays the harmonica. And I mean, he doesn't really do much apart from play a harmonica, but he's quite good. And the other characters are good. Like we see at one point that one of the Happiness Patrol betrays, and leaves them, and we see that she's about to be executed, and so's Ace. And you have that great scene that Alan pointed out where the doctor, he's talking to that sniper, and he says, "Oh, pull a trigger, end a life. Simple, isn't it? Killing. It's simple." And he's like, "You like guns, don't you?" And he says, "Go ahead. Pull the trigger, end my life." And he's like, "It's easy, isn't it? Killing life." And he's like, "Go ahead, pull the trigger, end my life." And it's just a great sequence. And he says, "Oh, I can't." He's like, "What? No, I can't pull the trigger." And it's a great scene. The doctor literally talks him out of killing him, because he's saying, "Oh, it's so easy to, take somebody's life. You just have to pull the trigger and that's it." Really great dark moment, and one of McCoy's best speeches. And as the story goes along, I think it's pretty well paced. I mean, it's only 3 parts, which is good. There's also that ridiculous,
3 parts.
yeah, 3 parts, yeah. But I mean, there's also that ridiculous buggy that the doctor and Ace go in, and like they go around this buggy around the whole set, and it's just such a slow buggy that they're in. Like they could just easily like outrun that buggy, or outwalk it. It's just kind of stupid to have that in there. But there's also these characters. I don't think either of you mentioned them, but these like sort of, I don't know, sort of trolls or gremlins, whatever, that live in the the basement of the Happiness Patrol. Like, and they wear these masks, and you can't make out a thing they say. They're like, "Oh, doctor," they're like these goblin creatures or whatever, and they're like, "Oh, doctor, we're so help you." And I thought they were awful. I mean, they look ridiculous. You can't make out a word they're saying, what the actors are saying, because of their costumes confining them. And I don't know why they're in the story. They're just these like generic goblins that appear out of nowhere. So that's another criticism I'll give this story. And the death of the Candyman is ridiculous. I think he goes into the fondue surprise, and the strawberry fondue like melts him. He gets drowned in it, and they drown people in fondue surprise, which is kind of sinister, but it's kind of laughable as well. But I thought the ending of the story was very good, where the doctor confronts Helena, and we see that her husband runs off with this man. And someone pointed out, I guess you could say it's the first gay character that we've seen in Doctor Who, because Helena's husband literally leaves her for this other guy. I think her husband's Joseph C. But I mean, they don't explicitly state that. It could just be a friend or whatever. But I did like the ending where she packs up and she leaves, and we see she gets very emotional when Fifi dies. Like, she's very emotionally connected to Fifi, and I did like the scene where she packs up and she says, "Oh, you can keep your sadness, Doctor. I shall go to another planet and start all over again." And the Doctor, I really like the bit at the end where the Doctor's talking to Helen, and he says, "Helen, there can't be happiness without sadness. They're 2 sides of the same coin. Happiness must, coexist with sadness." And then she says, "You can keep your sadness." And then she sees Fifi dead at the end, and she starts to cry. And we see that she wants to be happy all the time, but in the end, the death of Fifi emotionally affects her, and she cries. So I thought that was a powerful way to end the story. So in conclusion, the Happiness Patrol. I think it's a good story. I don't think it's perfect. It's not one of my favorite McCoy stories, but I still think it's good. I still like it. My main problem with the story is the Candyman himself is just ridiculous. Like the voice and the look of him, he's just one of the worst Doctor Who villains. I think the goblin-like creatures as well that you see underneath the city, with the masks on, you can't make out a word that they're saying. I think they're terrible as well. They need to be in the story. Some campy stuff in there like Fifi and the death of Fifi that kind of made me laugh. So it's not perfect. There's a lot of campy stuff in this that kind of drags it down a bit. But the fundamental message, like the satire of Thatcher and the idea that happiness cannot exist without sadness, I think it's something that Inside Out would explore many years later. Maybe they got a little bit of inspiration from this. I don't know, but I think maybe Inside Out executed that better. The idea of emotions and happiness and sadness, and there are some jarring things going on here tonally, but I think Sheila Hancock's very good as Helen A. I think McCoy's great. He gets some really great speeches, like the sniper speech and the speech at the end to Helen A. Overall, I think it's a good story. Flaws and all. I mean, the Candyman is shit, and the goblins I don't care for, and Fifi and her death was kind of stupid. But apart from that, I think it's a good story. So I'm going to close off by giving the Happiness Patrol a 7 out of 10. So yeah.
Cool.
Okay, so
Sweet.
Sorry.
I just said sweet, as in good, nice. No pun intended.
Okay, so we come on to the next story, which is the 25th anniversary story, which sees the return of the Cybermen.
Oh, vey.
Whoopee.
Silver Nemesis, which is the last Cyberman story in the classic series. So, yeah.
Can we call
Alan,
it
give us your
Sleeping
thoughts.
Nemesis?
Yeah. Yeah, well, I think this is your nemesis, Ollie, like Star Trek nemesis. Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Okay, Alan, so give us your thoughts on Silver Nemesis, the 25th
If you can
anniversary
remember
story.
anything.
Okay, Silver Nemesis, the story that was meant to be the 25th anniversary story for Doctor Who. And
Lol, meant to be.
yeah, they even timed it so it was aired like right around the exact same date as the very first Doctor story, An Unearthly Child. Looks like Silver Nemesis went out. The first episode went out November 23rd, 1988. So pretty darn close to the 25th anniversary of the show. And yes, they brought back the Cybermen in this story for the last time in the classic series. But this ain't much of an anniversary story. It really isn't. It seems like a very half-hearted attempt at an anniversary story. And I have to say that although I don't think Silver Nemesis is horrible, it has its moments that are entertaining. This is easily my pick for the worst Cyberman story, or at the very least, the worst Cyberman story from the classic series. I mean, the Cybermen don't even need to be in this story, really. I think they were only shoehorned in there by John Nathan Turner because, it's the 25th anniversary of Doctor Who. We have to have a classic alien or monsters to go up against the Doctor for the 25th anniversary. I kind of think sometimes maybe they could have flipped the Cybermen and the Daleks around. Maybe the first story could have been Remembrance of the Cybermen, and then we had the Daleks and Silver Nemesis, and that would have been more entertaining.
Well, I mean, on your point about them not needing to be there, yeah, it does feel like an afterthought. They were just sort of chucked in at the last minute.
Yeah, because I don't think we're ever told in this story why the Cybermen are even going after this super weapon with the bow and arrow in the first place. They just show up and they're looking for it. We don't really know why. At least I don't think. Or if we're told why they want it, I don't remember what the reason was. But yeah, it's like they were shoehorned in, and the Cybermen, I have to admit, are pretty pathetic in this story because they get taken out so easily. I mean, you can kill them now with a slingshot as long as you fling gold at them, because that is the Cybermen's weakness.
Yeah, how does that work when they're fucking metal?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I can understand if you take gold and you rub it into their little screen that they have on the chest, that can kill them. But I mean, a slingshot flinging gold at them at their chest, it's just going to bounce off their chest for a second, and yet that's enough to kill them. Really?
I
Although
know Mike.
yeah, I don't get it. I mean, I do like the fact that it gives Ace a reason to pull out her slingshot and fling gold. I guess gold coins is what she has. Fling gold coins at them and can kill them. And hold on, I have to turn on the camera. You know, I have to turn on the camera for this. I do like watching the Cybermen die in this story because it's just so over the top. It's just okay. They get gold fling at their chest. You see it sparks. Oh! You know, very hammy, over the top deaths. You want to see it again? Oh! Yeah, that's fun. That's fun to watch. I like the Cybermen die in this story because it's just so hammy and over the top. The way they get killed off. I mean, they're kind of like the stormtroopers in Star Wars: Return of the Jedi. They get taken out so easily. Only instead of Ewoks, it's gold coins that that Ace flings at them. Okay, so that's amusing watching the Cybermen die in this, but I don't understand why they even want the weapon with the bow and arrow. Also, I don't understand the weapon with the bow and arrow. I don't understand it. I mean, okay, so it's this weapon that's in the form of a silver statue that I guess is modeled after the main villainess in the story, which is a Lady Pinafort. Please forgive me in my review of this story that I mispronounced her name as Pinefort. I think I flashed on the screen a little message saying, oops, sorry, it's really pronounced Pinafort. But yeah, played by Fiona Walker, Lady Pinafort. The statue is modeled after her, and the statue needs the silver, it needs the bow and the arrow, and it's a silver statue that lays in this replica of a meteor. It's like a meteor with rocket boosters on it.
I mean, what?
Yeah, I know, and apparently the Doctor built it. How and why, and and also apparently this replica of a meteor with rocket boosters. Apparently it orbits around the Earth every 25 years. Do you get it? 25th anniversary of Doctor Who. It goes around the Earth every 25 years. Nudge, nudge, wink, wink. Do you get it? Do you get it? 25th anniversary. Nudge, nudge, wink, wink. Nudge, nudge. Yeah, we get it.
Yeah, that's not on the nose, JNT.
Yeah, yeah. And calling the story Silver Nemesis because it's the silver anniversary of Doctor Who. Nudge, nudge, wink, wink. Do you get it? Do you get it? Silver anniversary. Nudge, nudge. Yeah. But yeah, the whole thing with the bow and the arrow, the statue with the bow and arrow, I just don't get it. And how the hell did the Doctor build this meteor thing with the rocket boosters in the first place? I mean, why? I don't understand any of that. I really don't. I mean, look, Sylvester McCoy is very good in this story. He's solid. Sophie Aldred, very good as Ace. And again, yes, she gets to bring out the slingshot and fling gold coins at the Cybermen and kill them. Oh, that's always fun. I do think that some of the location stuff is good. And one shot in this story that does stick out to me as being really cool is there's this one bit where Ace, I don't remember if the Doctor is actually there with her, but there's a scene where Ace is being chased by the Cybermen at like this big, gigantic hangar. And she had to go way high up at the hangar and run on this catwalk that's really high up. And the camera follows her down the catwalk. I guess she's being chased by the Cybermen on this catwalk. And it's pretty obvious that Sophie Aldred and the cameraman had to go really high up on that catwalk. So I thought that whole bit was pretty cool. I wonder how it must have been for Sophie Aldred to go that high up and have to do this action scene. I mean, I'm sure the catwalk was more than strong enough, but still, if you have a thing about heights, it might have been kind of nerve-wracking to be up there. But she did it. She did it, and so did the cameraman. And it does look pretty impressive, that one shot. So that one good shot from the story that sticks out in my mind, as well as the hammy deaths of the Cybermen. But yeah, the Cybermen don't even need to be in this story. They're pretty pointless. The supporting characters, well, okay. Fiona Walker makes for a good villainess as Lady Pinafort. She also has her manservant. I guess that would be Richard, played by Gerard Murphy. He's good, although I got a little sick and tired of him constantly saying, "Milady, milady, milady. Milady, we have to do this. Milady, we have to do that. Milady, what do you wish? Milady, milady, milady." It's like I got tired of hearing milady from him. I guess you can blame the writer for that, Kevin Clark, who wrote this. there's another pointless character in this story, Mrs. Remington, played by Dolores Gray, who actually was a very successful movie actress. I think in the 1940s, 50s, and 60s. She might have even had her own television show for a time. It's nice to see her in this story, but her character is pointless. All she does in this story, she plays a wealthy woman, and she gives Lady Pinafort and Richard a ride in her limo, who attack or they confront Lady Pinafort and Richard and want to, I guess, steal from them. And then somehow Lady Pinafort and Richard manage to hang them up in trees upside down, although we're not actually shown how they managed to do that. And the skinheads are pointless in this story. They don't need to be here. This story is just a mess. It really truly is. I mean, it's not the worst from McCoy's era. You know, I mean, it's definitely a better story than Time in the Randy or Delta and the Bannerman. But you know, this was supposed to be the 25th anniversary story for Doctor Who. But this was the best they could do. It's like, okay, let's just put the Cybermen in there and we'll call it Silver Nemesis to celebrate the silver anniversary of Doctor Who. And that's not good enough, JNT. That's not good enough. You needed a much better story. The story is very confusing. I don't fully understand it. I don't understand the point of this super weapon, that the statue that needs the bow and arrow.
Yeah.
Although I do think that there's another cool shot in the story when the statue finally gets to hold the bow and the arrow. I think it's like super bright silvery. That looks cool. Although then we get another shot where I guess the Cyberman spaceship is flying, or maybe the meteor takes off with the statue in it, and it does look very cheap at the same time.
Although the locales are quite good. The location, the castle, whatever, where they shot was, I think that's decent, but it doesn't make up for the cheapness of the story, but it's certainly nice.
Yeah. I mean, there is some location stuff here that is good, and again, Sylvester McCoy is good as the Doctor, Sophie Aldred good as Ace. I did like seeing her fling the slingshot at the Cybermen and watching them die in very hammy, over the top ways. But so much of the plot, I just don't get it. I just don't get it at all.
It's very convoluted.
Very convoluted. And again, I don't understand the whole story about the super weapon, the statue that needs the bow and arrow. I don't understand why the Cybermen are going after it. It just feels like the Cybermen are there just so we have something there to celebrate the 25th.
What would have made more sense is them trying to find the arrow of fucking Cupid.
Yeah, exactly. It's it's for me, it's the poorest Cyberman story I've ever seen.
I agree with you, actually. Yeah, it's probably the worst Cyberman story.
One of the worst Cyberman story. They didn't even need to be there. They felt very shoehorned in. And yet I don't hate this story. It's not without its entertainment value. Again, good location stuff, good performances from McCoy and Aldred. But overall, as you say, Ollie, it's a very convoluted story. I can't make heads or tails of it, really.
Easily the worst of the season.
I would definitely say this is the worst of the season. Yes, definitely. And for an anniversary Doctor Who story, it's just very disappointing. For me, it feels very half-hearted that they really truly didn't put all their effort into this. And on the positive side, okay, it's only 3 episodes, so it goes by more or less kind of quickly, but it's a very disappointing Doctor Who story, and it ain't much of an anniversary story, that's for sure. And when I look back at all the Cybermen stories, this is the one that I put at the very bottom. It really is. I don't really know what else to say about it, but it is my least favorite story of the season. So, I mean, I'm going to rank this one at the bottom for the season. So on a scale of 1 to 10, I'm going to give Silver Nemesis a 4 out of 10. That's the best I can do.
4.
Fair. Yeah. Okay, Ollie. Now the time to talk about your nemesis, Silver Nemesis.
Wake me when it's over. I'm only joking. Okay, Silver Nemesis. Well, I guess I pretty much agree with Alan. This is a terrible Doctor Who story. And it saddens me that this is the last appearance of the Cybermen in the classic series, and also the 25th anniversary of this show. I mean, fucking hell. I mean, we thought that Die Another Day was a crap anniversary for Bond.
Really?
Oh god, this isn't much better. It's look, the very idea of the story is ill-conceived. I mean, I suppose I could see what they were trying to do, go for a kind of a blend of like a sort of a fantasy-esque story, but I think perhaps this idea would have worked better without the Cybermen. I think having different villains would have, well, or not even having the Cybermen, it would have made the story better.
Not only that, Ollie, but not only that, but the story of this just completely rips off remembrance of the Daleks. You have the Cybermen going after this valuable artifact that can destroy other planets, the Nemesis, and like you have the Daleks going after the Hand of Omega. It's just the exact same storyline. Like, even Ace says in the story, "Oh, you're going to defeat the Cybermen like you did the Daleks." It just shows they really couldn't be bothered with the script here.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Yeah, there is that too. But I agree with Alan. The Cybermen, what do they do here? They just die. That's what they do there. I mean, I hate to use this word because it might sound a bit offensive, but they're pussies. They're fucking pussies. They just fall down and die like a bunch of, pussies. No, and I don't know what's happened. It's like J&T has kind of degraded them in a way. I mean, their design is okay, and the voices are okay, but everything else is just pointless. The action is not good. For me, I actually found the story to be quite sluggish. I actually thought it was boring at 3 parts. It just dragged for the entirety of its runtime. I mean, I liked the location stuff, and the castle setting is nice and everything, but sorry, I forget the character's name. The female villain woman.
Lady Pinafort.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Lady Pinafore. She was okay. I quite liked her. I thought she was all right. And McCoy is very good as the Doctor here, as well as Sophie Aldred as Ace. I just feel sorry for them. I mean, they're totally wasted. And the biggest problem of the story is, well, the story itself. I mean, if you think Ghostlight is convoluted, then fuck me. You haven't seen nothing yet. This story is one of the most convoluted Doctor Who stories I've ever seen. The plot makes little to no sense, and why the fuck does the whole thing revolve around this stupid arrow and a statue? Like, it doesn't go anywhere, and it's so muddled beyond belief. I can't make sense of it. Like Alan, I struggle to make sense of it. I don't even think rewatching it would allow me to make sense of it. So, yeah, I think it's a total mock-up. It's a total cock-up of storytelling. I don't know who wrote the script, but they really didn't do themselves any favors. Like you said, they ripped off Remembrance of the Daleks, and they basically just half-assed it. Like Alan said, it's a very poor. Basically, I kind of see this story as a bit of it's a poor man's Remembrance of the Daleks. That's that's kind of how I see it. But it's a very poor man's version of that. But it doesn't nearly have the sort of. It tries to go for the kind of the epic, grandiose scale of that story, but it doesn't work. I don't know what else to say. It's just so boring and forgettable. I think I actually dozed off during some of this story.
I was going to ask. I was going to say, what did you think of the skinheads? Those random skinheads that are just in there for no reason.
Yeah, I don't know why they were in it. I guess they were in there for forced comedy, but it wasn't funny. Like, I don't know why they were in it, and the scenes with them were utterly irrelevant to the plot. Well, if you can say that this thing has a plot, but the more I try to think about it, the more I just don't remember it. I just think it's totally forgettable and easily the worst story in the classic series of the Cybermen. Possibly the worst of all time, though there might be one or two in the new series. I don't know. I mean, I haven't watched Jodie Whittaker's era much, and I'm not sure if Nightmare in Silver comes close, but we'll get to that later. So yeah, and I suppose the music is all right. I just think this idea would have been better to have a fantasy sort of story without the Cybermen. That's where I think the story Battlefield actually works a lot better. But obviously we'll get to that later in the next hangout. But Silver Nemesis is crap, and it's a really shameful anniversary of this show. And like Alan said, they half-assed it. They didn't care. J&T was like, well, let's just redo Remembrance of the Daleks, but with the Cybermen, and make it crappier. And that's what they did. So, I mean, the Happiness Patrol, I would probably take it over this based on the fact that the idea is better and the story, you can at least follow it. You can at least follow it. With this, it's all over the fucking shop. So, yeah, and I think the Cybermen themselves, they're made out to be pussies. They're made out to be wimps. And that's just awful for me. Like Alan said, they're taken out much too easily, and there's no sense of weight to the story. They're not threatening. They're just completely the opposite. So for me, I have to give Silver Nemesis a 3 out of 10. I give it a 3 because I like Lady Pinafore, and obviously the Doctor and Ace are very good. And the castle, like the locales are good, but and there's also some very cheap effect shots as well. But for me, it's just a boring, bland, forgettable story, and easily the worst of this season. Easily the worst.
Thanks, Ollie. Well, Silver Nemesis. Excuse me for one moment.
Yes, very appropriate, Jack. Drink up.
We didn't see that coming. Keep drinking, buddy.
Fuck this story. Fuck it! God.
Oh dear. Somebody's been shot with an arrow.
Silver Nemesis, this story is my fucking nemesis. Like Star Trek Nemesis is Ollie's nemesis. This is my nemesis. This is easily the worst of this season. Silver Nemesis, I just think it's crap. It really is crap. And funnily enough, the guy who wrote this, Kevin Clark, he didn't even have an idea for this story when he was initially asked to write for the show. I think J&T wanted to meet up with him one day and get his idea or his script for the show. And because Kevin Clark had an idea, he just went up to J&T and he said that the Doctor was literally God in this story. So, I mean, he had no clue what he was fucking doing. He had no ideas for the story. So, so they essentially, because he had no ideas or no script, they just essentially recycle the plot of Remembrance of the Daleks. And that's the biggest problem with this, is that it's just a complete carbon copy of Remembrance of the Daleks. And, I wouldn't be, it wouldn't bother me as much, but, Remembrance of the Daleks is in the same season, and it's only a couple of, stories before this. The fact that the story is just a complete carbon copy, like, you got the Cybermen going after the Nemesis, like you had the Daleks going after the Hand of Omega. It's just so pathetic, really. And I don't like the look of the Cybermen here. Like, they look, I mean, I know the story's called Silver Nemesis, but they look too shiny. Like, their helmets are way too shiny and silvery, and they got like cricket gloves that they painted grey, and they look crap in this story. And one thing I will say is David Banks, it's great to have him back for the third and final time as the Cyber leader, which he played in Earthshock and Attack of the Cybermen. So it's nice to see him one final time, but he's kind of wasted. And the story here is just a who cares, who gives a fuck story. And I just don't care for it. I mean, the idea of this Nemesis, I think it arrives on Earth every 25 years. Get it? Every 25 years, because it's the 25th anniversary of this story. And, the idea that the Doctor built this thing and it looks like Lady Painfort, it's like, what the fuck is going on here? And all the stuff with Lady Painfort and her accomplice, Richard, I mean, it's kind of amusing, but at the same time, it's like, she's not really adding anything to the story. Like, what the fuck does this have to do with Doctor Who? And like Alan said, it kind of gets annoying him saying "milady, milady" all the time, and he says he's going to put down his life for Lady Pienfort, and she says, "Oh, you're a good man, Richard, and I shouldn't be your leader or whatever." And it's kind of interesting to see them interact with the modern day, late 1980s, but at the same time, it's like, who gives a fuck, really? I mean, the beginning is kind of interesting where you got the Doctor and Ace and they're listening to jazz or whatever, and they fall in that river. And then we see later on that the Doctor realizes that the Cybermen are going to come and try and take the Nemesis. And we've also got this stuff here. I don't know if Alan mentioned this, but we've got some stuff here of these like neo-Nazis. And you got Anton Differing.
Oh, you're right. I forgot to mention them. You're right. Yeah.
You got Anton Differing as De Fleurs, and Anton Differing. I mean, he played quite a few Nazis in films. Like he played a Nazi in Where Eagles Dare, and he was basically the German actor that they used all the time in war movies to play a Nazi, and he plays the leader of this like neo-Nazi group, and he says, "Oh, all hail the Fourth Reich," and we see that they're after the Nemesis, but I just don't care for these characters. Like they're not really fleshed out. I don't know why they're after the Nemesis. I mean, I know they're a neo-Nazi group and Hitler was kind of into stuff like the Spear of Destiny, but at the same time, it's like, how do they know about the Nemesis? How do they know it lands on Earth every 25 years? How do they know about the bow and arrow? And I have to say, the Cybermen in this story are just complete weaklings. I mean, there's that cliffhanger in episode 1 where the Doctor says, "Oh, Cybermen, they come out of the spaceship," and we see that the slightest bit of gold in this story basically destroys them. Like we see that Ace is using this catapult and she's using gold coins and using the catapult at the Cybermen, and like the slightest bit of gold blows the Cybermen up. I'm just thinking to myself, like, what the fuck is going on here? Because in Earthshock, the Doctor, he got Adric's gold badge and he used it on the chest unit of the cyber leader, and even then, it took the Doctor, quite a few, attempts with the cyber gun shooting him afterwards to kill him off. So the gold, it's just ridiculous that the slightest bit of gold just makes him explode. It's like, well, then why didn't that happen in Earthshock and all the other Cyberman stories where Davison rubs the gold into the Cyberman's chest and even then he has to shoot him with the gun? Makes no fucking sense. That was just so stupid. And the Cybermen here are just useless. Like the golden arrows that kill them, and they're just fucking pathetic. And this is easily the worst Cyberman story of the classic series, even worse than Attack of the Cybermen, because the Cybermen here are just a complete joke. I mean, they really are a complete joke in this story. And the story itself, I mean, I just don't care for it. I really don't care. It's just so boring. I mean, it's only 3 parts long, but it just drags, and there's so many scenes in here that are pointless. Like there's that scene with the fucking skinheads, which is one of the worst scenes in Doctor Who history. It's just there for padding. It's just there to pad out the story, where you've got these 2 random skinheads and they confront Lady Pienfort and Richard, and then all of a sudden the next scene they're hanging upside down from this tree with their pants down. It's like, what? Are you fucking kidding me? Oh God, it's just so stupid. The story is just a complete mess. Like there's the whole sequence as well. We got that American tourist in the car that picks up Richard and Lady Pienfort, and it adds nothing to the story. It literally adds nothing. Like you've got this random sequence where this American tourist picks up Lady Pienfort and Richard, and they're talking in the car, and it's like, what the fuck is going on here? And also, what's stupid in this story is I think they set part of it in Windsor Castle, and they couldn't film in Windsor Castle, and they couldn't get the Queen, so they get an extra that looks like the Queen, and she's got her corgis, and I'm just like, oh, for God's sake, really, really? I mean, I know the Queen was a fan of Doctor Who, but like having the extra of the Queen with the corgis, it's like, what the fuck? Like, what is the point of that in this story, really? Because the Doctor doesn't get to meet the Queen, and the story's just it's a fucking boring run around for 3 episodes. There is one amusing scene, I think, where the Doctor Ace puts on a fez, and that was many years before Matt Smith, so that was nice. And there's a scene where I think the Golden Arrow, it shoots the TARDIS, it gets stuck on the TARDIS door, and that was good. And the Cybermen, like we see at one point, they want the Nemesis, and the Doctor is talking about the Nemesis, and apparently he created it, and it's this powerful weapon. And we do have some interesting stuff where Lady Painfort says towards the end, "Oh, do you know who the Doctor is? Do you know what he's really about?" And I like that. I mean, it adds more interest. It basically adds more mystery to the Doctor, where she says to Ace, "So, do you know who the Doctor is? Where he's from?" Although saying that, I don't know how Lady Painfort knows about the Doctor. I mean, I don't think she's met him before, and I mean, apparently she knows who he is, and who he really is and stuff. And kind of confusing, to be honest. And I just think it's pathetic when you have Ace running around with a catapult, shooting, these gold coins at the Cybermen and making them blow up. I mean, it's kind of cool in some ways to see Ace going around killing the Cybermen, but it's really ridiculous as well how like the slightest bit of gold kills them. And the ending of the story, I think, is so lame. It's such a cop out. I think he sends the Silver Nemesis back, or Lady Painfort, she goes inside the Nemesis and it blows up or something like that. And it's just such a forgettable story. Like the Cyber Leader, he gets killed, I think, and the ending where I think Ace is talking to the Doctor, and she says, "But who are you, Doctor? Doctor who?" And then the Doctor, he does this. I think McCoy does this. She says, "Oh, who are you, Doctor? Doctor who?" And then he goes like that, and that's the end of the story. And yeah, it's just such a crap 25th anniversary story. I mean, they really put no effort in. I mean, Kevin Clark, he didn't even have an idea or a script when he met JNT, and he came up with this bullshit that the Doctor was literally God, and so instead they just recycled the storyline of Remembrance. And the Cybermen are lame in this story. I don't like their redesign. Like, they look far too silver, and the cricket gloves spray grey, and it just looks crap. And it really is such a boring Doctor Who story. It's really forgettable as well. I mean, it's only 3 parts long. It's not even the longest of the season. Greatest Show and Remembrance of the Daleks are longer, but they are way better stories. And this one is just crap. It is easily the worst of the season. And what a terrible way to celebrate 25 years of the show. I mean, honestly, I see Remembrance of the Daleks as the 25th anniversary story, because that started off the season, and there's a lot of callbacks to the original show, and that feels a lot more like the 25th anniversary story. And it's just crap. I mean, originally they were going to have a 25th anniversary story called The Seven Doctors, and it was going to have Patrick Troughton, Pertwee, Baker, Davison, Colin Baker, and McCoy. But sadly, Troughton passed away the year before. I think he passed away in '87. So they decided, to cancel that they weren't gonna go ahead with that idea. So instead, we get Silver Nemesis, and it's so forgettable. It's so boring. Honestly, like, there are a lot better Doctor Who stories out there. There's a lot better anniversary stories, like the 3 Doctors and 5 Doctors, and even Day of the Doctor's better than this one. It's probably the worst anniversary story, sadly, that we've had so far. So I'm going to close off by giving this story a 3 out of 10. So yeah. Okay, now we come on to the last story of this season, and I think we all agree this is a really good story. It's The Greatest Show in the Galaxy.
Word.
So Alan, take it away. Give us your thoughts on Doctor Who. Is it the greatest show in the galaxy? I think at this point it is, but yeah.
Can I make a request? I want Alan to tell us his thoughts in a rap.
Really?
MC
Really?
Halo in the house.
Okay. Your wish is my command. Welcome all. You've come to see the greatest show in the galaxy. Yeah,
Woo!
boy.
Bravo!
Biatch. There you go. Thank you.
That was great.
Okay. Thank you. Yes, by request. Thank you, Ollie. Okay. Well, the greatest show in the galaxy. I got to tell you, even though I do have a couple of little nitpicks with this story, there's no doubt in my mind that this story is the greatest show in the Sylvester McCoy galaxy. That's for sure. It's my favorite Sylvester McCoy story. So, yay. Right on.
Woo!
A truly great Doctor Who story. I want to give it a perfect score so badly, but I do have a couple of nitpicks, I have to admit. But other than a couple of nitpicks, this is a terrific Doctor Who story. And yeah, I have to say this is definitely my favorite story from the Sylvester McCoy era. This is the closest McCoy ever got for me to scoring a perfect 10 out of 10. I mean, you two might feel differently and give it the perfect 10, which is great. Great if you give it the perfect 10. I'll give it something, in the neighborhood, but it's a terrific story overall. Um, there's just so much wonderful imagination behind this story, and another thing is that it has a great script written by Stephen Wyatt, and it's directed brilliantly by Alan Waring. His direction on this is solid. You've got great characters, and you have a terrific cast. For me, this story is Sylvester McCoy's finest hour as the Doctor. McCoy's given a lot of very good performances throughout his era, and also one or two not so good ones. But I think this is definitely his best story. For one thing, it's the best script he ever got as the Seventh Doctor. It also allows him to both do the dramatic stuff, and also being a story that takes place at a circus. It also allows McCoy to do some circus tricks. I think McCoy has some circus experience as well. So him doing like, for example, there's one scene at the end where we see him in a straitjacket trying to escape the straitjacket as if performing in a circus act, and doing some tricks with rope, doing some tricks like, with eggs mysteriously, pulling an egg out of his mouth, and then another one magically appears in his mouth, doing circus kinds of tricks. He also gets to swing on a rope at one part of this story. That wasn't a stuntman doing it. That was McCoy swinging on the rope. And of course, there's one great fantastic action scene in this story, which I will talk about shortly. That McCoy has my utmost respect for him doing that scene, and I'll talk about that shortly. But overall, I mean, I don't think the writing was ever better in the McCoy era than it is here in Greatest Show in the Galaxy. There is one other story coming up for McCoy that I think comes close, but this is probably the best script McCoy ever got. The direction is tight, and even though there is some location stuff shot in this story, I thought they did it really well. I mean, I know I've said in the past that I miss that old classic look of Doctor Who where all the location stuff would be shot on film, and then the studio stuff would be shot on videotape. And now in the McCoy era, everything is shot on videotape, including the location stuff. But the location stuff they did here was very good. They shot it really well. They set it up really well, and I just appreciate that you can definitely sense in Greatest Show in the Galaxy that they're trying. Everybody on board in this story, they're really, really trying to do something really good and really special. It's not a
And I don't know about
half-hearted.
you, but I find this story scary. It's fucking
Oh,
freaky.
yes. There's definitely an air of dread in this story. And again, the story also plays upon some people's fears of clowns. Even Ace admits in this story that she doesn't like clowns. They kind of give her the creeps. So the story plays on that fear. If you thought Pennywise the clown from It was scary, well, take a look at the chief clown in this story, played by Ian Reddington. He has some very chilling moments in this story. Yeah, the sense of dread, the sense that there's definitely some sort of evil lurking underneath this circus. Yeah, I mean the atmosphere to this story is really good. Um, I thought that they worked wonders with this story. They really did. Again, with the writing, the directing, the acting, the characters are very colorful and memorable. The cast is terrific. again, I think this is McCoy's finest hour as the Seventh Doctor. I don't think he's ever been better than he is here. Sophie Aldred is terrific in this story. Strong support from her, and again, seeing how she deals with the menace and the fact that she apparently does have a fear of clowns, or a dislike of clowns at least. So the story kind of plays on that fear, but she gives excellent support to McCoy in this story. They make a great pair. And I just love all the supporting characters. I mean, these are all memorable characters to me. I love all of them. I mean, going down the list here in Wikipedia, I mean, you've got T.P. McKenna as Captain Cook. He's like this safari kind of guy. You know, he's got the mustache, he's got the safari gear and the hat. And although there's something very peculiar about him, as we will find out later. But he's quite memorable. You know, he has a very strong presence about him. And yeah, Captain Cook, he looks after another memorable character in the story, Mags, played by Jessica Martin, and she's this young woman who, it turns out, she can turn into a werewolf, and she has that ability, or that curse, I guess, depending how you look at it. And Jessica Martin, she's terrific in this, and apparently this was her first big acting role. And as far as I know, I think she's gone on to do a lot of other work, including stage work and voiceover, and you know, she's got a very solid career. She may not be a big name in the States, but I think this was her first big acting job, was playing Mags in Greatest Show in the Galaxy.
Can I just say, sorry, she acts that transformation scene really well.
Yes, she does. Yes, she does. I mean, I really bought her completely as a werewolf, and just you know, the you know, the dignity that she puts into the character. And it doesn't hurt either that she's also cute. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, she's a small woman, very small.
Oh, so now it's the cutest show in the galaxy.
Yeah, but she is quite cute. I'm not gonna deny that. But I mean, excellent performance. And yeah, I know she's gone on to a very successful career. So hey, good for her. But yeah, she's really wonderful here as Mags. So I like her a lot. Rico Ross plays the ringmaster, and overall, I like his performance. I think he's a solid ringmaster, except for one thing, which I'll get to later. You probably know what it is, but I'll get to that later. Another big standout in the cast, of course, you know, I have to mention Ian Reddington as the chief clown. I mean, he is chilling as the chief clown. I mean, there's some parts here. I guess I have to turn on the camera. I'll never be able to do it as good as Ian Reddington, but that bit where he does the hand gestures and the facial expression, you know, when he does that, I mean, he's quite chilling, very, very chilling when he does that. I mean, he does get a speaking role here, but he's definitely a menace. I know he could scare the shit out of some young kids in the audience. He really could, but he is quite menacing. And the makeup on him, and when he does that evil smile, and he does the hand gesture, yeah, very, very chilling. I mean, he is a very memorable character, and I would put him. I would say he's just as scary as Pennywise the clown, or any other clowns that might give you the heebie-jeebies. But he's terrific in the story, very memorable, and I think he's one of the best villains I've ever seen in Doctor Who. I think he really is that good and that memorable. Actually, I was watching The Greatest Show in the Galaxy the other night, again, because we were preparing for this hangout, and I was watching the documentary on the making of the show, and Ian Reddington was interviewed. Yes, you get to see him without the makeup in the documentary, and yeah, he was saying that he won a poll done that year as the best Doctor Who villain for the season, and yeah, he was quite humbled by that, and yeah, I think he totally deserved it. He is quite chilling.
Well, then again, when you're up against the Candyman, I mean, well, there's not much competition, is there?
Well, yeah, but still, it's a nice honor. I mean, they also mentioned Sheila Hancock as Helen A in the Happiness Patrol, and she was great. But yeah, that was very nice of him to be mentioned as the best villain of the season. So that was good. That was good, and he deserved that. He was quite good. Yeah, you got other people. Oh, Christopher Guard as Bellboy, the mentally and emotionally tormented character named Bellboy, and he's the character who builds the robots that are at the circus, and he's a very, very tormented character. And I thought Christopher Guard played him wonderfully. it's a very powerful performance. I mean, he's just so distraught. I mean, he's lost everything that's dear to him, and yet he still has to work at the circus, and he's under the orders of the chief clown to fix whatever breaks down, to fix the robots. But I mean, he's clearly a very tormented character who has seen too much, and it turns out at the end that he's just a little too far gone, and yeah, he's not going to come to a particularly happy end, which is sad. I'll get to that later on. I also like Deborah Manship as Morgana. She's like the gypsy lady who also takes your tickets at the front of the circus. She's quite good. She gets a lot to do in her supporting role. Chris Jury as Deadbeat, who we find out was his previous name was Kingpin, and he's also a very tormented character who seems to be suffering some sort of mental anguish in this story. But he's quite good as well.
Yeah, this story deals a lot with mental health, actually. A lot of the characters are, even
Yeah.
Mads, who has to suffer with her condition as a werewolf. It's actually kind of heartbreaking to see all these mental. I think the story's about mental torture. I think that's definitely the theme of it, which is very strong. Even Ace, I think, has, and the Doctor, they go through it as well.
Yeah, no, I would agree with you. I would agree with you. And the fact that the story takes place at a circus, and clearly all is not well at the circus, not in the slightest. And yes, like you said, there's a lot of mental and emotional anguish that some of the characters are suffering at the circus. And yeah, overall, and although her role is small, Dee Sadler as Flower Child, who I guess is basically Bellboy's girlfriend or female companion, although sadly she's killed early in the story. But for the screen time that she has, she's quite good. And we see these very mysterious characters at the circus too. This mom and dad and a little girl, and they're just sitting in the stalls at the circus, and they want to be entertained. They're just sitting there. They're munching on their popcorn or having their ice cream, and that's pretty much all they do. And as the acts perform in the ring, they hold up, I guess, rating cards, 9.9 or 0 or whatever to rate the acts, and they're a very weird bunch. But it turns out they're not who they appear to be, but they're really good. I also have to mention that it's rare that I will give John Nathan Turner props because, as you know, I disagree with a lot of. I don't disagree with everything he did, for heaven's sake, but I disagree with a lot of things that he did on the show. But I will concede. Peter Davison's classic finale, The Caves of Androzani, who produced it? John Nathan Turner. He's also the guy who produced Kinda with Peter Davison. That's another favorite story of mine. Vengeance on Varos with Colin Baker, I think, is a great story, even though it's controversial, but I think it's great. And I have to tip my hat to John Nathan Turner in this case because The Greatest Show in the Galaxy came damn close to not being finished. It nearly suffered the same fate as the Tom Baker story Shada, which was never finished because apparently there was they discovered a lot of asbestos at the BBC studios, and so all the studios had to be cleared out while some team went in there and cleaned all the asbestos out of the BBC studios. And The Greatest Show in the Galaxy was the Doctor Who story that was being shot at the time that this asbestos thing was happening at the BBC, and it came very, very close to being canceled. But John Nathan Turner really wanted this story to be saved, and so as a way of saving the story, they eventually came up with a way that, okay, we can't shoot the studio stuff in the studio, so let's shoot it in a tent, in a big tent, which I think they erected in the parking lot of the BBC or some at a location nearby the BBC. And how lucky it was that this particular story that had to be shot in a tent was a story that took place at a circus. How lucky they got that was the theme of this story. So shooting it in a big tent rather than the studios fit this story perfectly fine. If it had been a story with a completely different setting, it might have been canceled, very possibly. But for this story, it was set in a circus, and as an emergency, they had to shoot a good portion of it in these tents in the BBC parking lot, and they managed to save the show and get it finished. So despite my various criticisms of John Nathan Turner over the years, I tip my hat to him for helping to get this particular Doctor Who story finished, and of course to the cast and crew for getting the job done by shooting a large chunk of it in these tents. You know, the fact they had to take all the sets from the studio and move them into the tents and get the story finished, but they did it. So I tip my hat to JNT and the cast and crew for getting the job done. I have to make mention. This story also gives me extra respect for Sylvester McCoy, because there's that one big moment towards the climax of this story where McCoy walks out of the tent. He's basically defeated the aliens. I have to mention them too, but we'll get to them shortly. He's walking out of the tent, having defeated the menace, and after he walks out of the tent, this big, huge explosion goes off in the tent, like right behind McCoy. I mean, this is a huge explosion. We're talking boom! It goes right behind McCoy. McCoy doesn't even flinch. He just keeps on walking. And there's no, I mean, it goes without saying that this was obviously a highly dangerous scene to do. I mean, McCoy could have been killed or at least injured very badly if something went wrong. But, and I'm also going to take a guess that this had to be done in one take. There was no way they could do this again. It had to be one take and done. But they did it. McCoy walks out of the tent, and then the explosion happens right behind him, and he just keeps on walking, doesn't even flinch. So I have to say, respect, Sylvester McCoy. Respect. That took balls, baby. That took major balls for him to do that, but he did it. And yeah, utmost respect to Sylvester McCoy for that. And the last bit of praise I'll give the story is that I also like the aliens that appear in the story. It turns out it's the mom and dad and child in disguise. That they are actually the gods of Ragnarok, which, by the way, no relation whatsoever to Marvel's Thor Ragnarok. This is a completely different Ragnarok. If I can bring up the photo from Wikipedia, this photo only shows two of them. There's three of them in the story. This photo only shows two of them, but man, I love their design. Just look at them, those helmets, the glowing eyes, the robes. I mean, they look like living statues. I think that's basically how they were designed to be, but they look super cool in this story, and I just love their design. So I think they were a great addition to the story and a great menace. Although it could be argued, okay, that these are gods that just want to sit around all day long and be entertained and not do anything else. That's a little curious about them, but I'm willing to forgive it because I just think.
Me, but doesn't this kind of remind you of Fall to Doomsday, with the villains that just kind of sat around and watched the show or whatever it was that was going on?
In a way, yes, you're right about that. But I think that the gods of Ragnarok are far more interesting than what we saw in Fort of Doomsday. Much more interesting. I mean, I still question it, why they just want to sit around all day and just be entertained and not do anything else. And if you don't entertain them, they kill you. But still, I find them very interesting. I find them very intriguing. I love their design. I love how they look like living statues. So I'm willing to forgive it. I'm willing to forgive the premise of the gods of Ragnarok because I just think they look so cool and they look very menacing indeed. So I'm willing to forgive that. However, the only couple of nitpicks I have about this story, the only couple of things that prevent me from giving it a perfect score, even though I want to give it a perfect score, it's like this story is saying to me, oh, come on, Alan, give me that perfect 10. Come on, give me the 10. Give me the 10. You know, but what prevents me from giving it the 10, for one thing, the ringmaster, even though Rico Ross's performance for the most part is very good, when he does his announcements at the circus, he doesn't speak like a regular ringmaster would. Instead, he raps, and he raps horribly. I mean, a ringmaster to me should come out, you know, with the circus music is playing, and then the ringmaster to me is supposed to speak like, you know, hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and welcome to the greatest show in the galaxy. Blah, blah, blah. Instead, he raps. And his rapping is terrible. I mean, I did it for you earlier today. You know, welcome all you come to see the greatest show in the galaxy. And, all right, welcome to the show. It's time to show you what you know, or something like that. It's awful, awful, awful rapping. And I mean, and that I do like a little bit of rap music. Okay, I'm not a rap music fan per se, but every once in a while I'll hear a rap song that I think is actually really good. Okay, it depends on the music sample they're using, and it depends on the actual rapping. Like for example, Ice Cube has a couple of rap songs that I actually like. I don't know if they were hits in the UK, but they were hits in the US. One called "It Was a Good Day," where he's just rapping about what a good day he had. I gotta say it was a good day. But he's using a good music sample. He does a good rap. He has another single called "You Know How We Do It," which is also a very catchy tune, good music bed. So I do like a little bit of rap music, okay? But here, I don't know. It's like the folks behind Doctor Who were trying to show how hip they were by putting in rap music, and they give the ringmaster the shittiest rapping to do, the most pedestrian rapping to do, even though Rico Ross is doing his best. But it just, when the ringmaster raps, and I think he raps like at least 3 or 4 times in the story, to me it just sounds like fingernails against the chalkboard. That's not Rico Ross's fault, but maybe it was the fault of the writer Stephen Wyatt, even though he wrote an otherwise terrific script. But the ringmaster rapping just doesn't work for me. I much rather would have had the ringmaster, do his announcements to the crowd like I think a ringmaster should speak. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, blah, blah, blah. That's what I would have liked. But to have him rapping, for me, just doesn't work. And the only other criticism I can give the story is that I was sad to see the character Bellboy die in the story. I mean, it basically amounts to a suicide, where he basically tells the chief clown, I won't follow you anymore. I won't take your orders anymore. And he turns on his electronic device to have the robots turn on him. And he's telling them, come on, come on. He basically wants them to strangle him. And apparently the strangulation, it happens. I think we see the beginning of it, and then the camera pans away, and then we get the chief clown going. But I mean, basically, the bellboy has the robots kill him because he's just so tormented and he can't take it anymore. He's basically given up. It basically amounts to a suicide. So that was very sad. But at the same time, I think the bellboy's final act was understandable. He was very tormented. He felt like he had lost everything that he loved, and he had just given up. So it's very sad. It's understandable, but it's very sad. And I wish the bellboy would have been able to have survived. Again, his death is understandable. His final act is understandable, but still, it's very sad. And for me, that also knocks the story down just a little bit for me as well. But other than those 2 nitpicks, I think this is a terrific Doctor Who story. It's the closest McCoy ever got to a perfect Doctor Who story. I'd love to give it a perfect 10, but I do have those 2 nitpicks with it. But other than that, this is a wonderfully imaginative story. So well written and directed and acted. Wonderful characters, great atmosphere. The dread in this story is there. And McCoy and Sophie Aldred and the cast play it to a T. And it's a terrific story. And it's entertaining for all 4 episodes. Really wonderful stuff. It's my pick for Sylvester McCoy's best story. So I'm going to give The Greatest Show in the Galaxy a very high 9 out of 10.
Jack? Do I just go, or do I...
Jack?
I guess I just wait for... Actually, I guess I'll just... Oh, there we go. He's gone. I guess I'll just start then. Well,
Go for it.
I suppose the only way to start is really by saying this.
Now, welcome, folks. I mean it from the heart, because the greatest show is about to start. It's happening right here before your very eyes. And one thing's for sure, you're in for quite a surprise. But then nothing is quite as it seems to be in the greatest show in the galaxy. What?
Well, it sounds a little better when you do it, I admit, but but still, I much rather have had the ringmaster rap regularly. But that's just my opinion. Just my opinion.
That's fine. I wasn't trying to show you up, but it was just I didn't want to do it now because my parents are in the next room. But
Sure.
yeah, I thought that would be the only way to introduce my thoughts. The greatest show in the galaxy. Wow. I mean, it really is the greatest show in the galaxy. It is everything it says. And for me, this is probably one of the best McCoy stories. This is like what, top 3. Like,
Yeah.
for me, this, The Curse of Fenric, and Survival are the best McCoy stories. And greatest show in the galaxy. Wow, this is tremendous story. There's a great atmosphere to it. It's really dark and creepy, and the fact that it's actually set in a circus is, well, genius. And it kind of adds a lot of visual possibilities, and the ideas in this story are really good, and it's freaky, and that's what I like about it. It's Doctor Who at its best because the story is freaky and it's scary, and it actually terrified me in a few places. And yeah, I do agree with what Alan said. There's a lot of mental anguish and emotional turmoil that characters are going through, and you sympathize with most characters. I too like the character of Mags. I think Mags is a really good character, and I feel sorry for her that she ends up turning into a werewolf. But that was a pretty dramatic moment, I must say, when she did turn, and it was freaky. McCoy, wow, this is one of McCoy's best performances. He's so good in this one, and I love that scene at the end where he has to entertain the Ragnarok or he'll die. So there's that great moment when I think he gets out the wooden spoon, not wooden spoons, but the metal spoons, and he starts kind of clanging them and doing all these things, and it's just a wonderfully eccentric moment for him. And he's also playing it quite serious in this one as well, which I like. Sophie Aldred as Ace is incredible as well. Ace is really good here, and she actually gets terrified in a lot of areas. I mean, she's not one of those companions who's just, she's not Mel. She doesn't scream at everything. She's quite tough, but it's good to show that Ace has vulnerability as well, and I appreciate that. I mean, the story is genius. I mean, the idea, actually, the premise of it is something that's, I'd say, fairly simple, but it's executed rather well. And like I said, the sort of background content in regards to the emotional side of the story is very well played, and it's just really well directed as well. It's expertly directed, and it's very cleverly written, I think. And like I said, the sort of the atmosphere of the story, the lighting, and the set is all very good. And considering, like you said, they had to move because of the asbestos, it actually worked out in their favor, to be honest. So yeah, and I do agree about the explosion. That was certainly a terrific moment. What else is that? The character of, is it Bellboy? Yeah, the character of Bellboy. I felt quite sorry for him with what he has to go through, but
yeah, me too.
He was a very good character, very well played, and certainly made you feel terrified. I mean, to me, he's the audience character. He's the character we're supposed to kind of feel sorry for, and we're kind of seeing the story in a bit through his eyes, as well as the Doctor and Ace. And just the terror of this story is just great. I mean, the aliens themselves, they're okay. I mean, the design is fine. I accept it, but it's interesting how we don't see their true form until the end, when initially they are perceived as this family, like the parents with a daughter, a young girl, but then they're like these are these like sort of stone looking things? I can't remember what they look like.
They look like, when you see them in their true form, they look like living statues. Yeah.
Yes,
The helmet,
Thank
the
you.
glowing eyes, the robes. Yeah, but they look like they're made of rock. So that's pretty amazing how they're designed. Love
Yeah.
the design.
Thank you for that. Sorry, it's been a while since I've seen this one, and it's quite late. I had a long day, trying to stay awake and trying to remember. As for the rapping, I know Alan was questioning my mild defense of the rapping, considering that I said that I too am not a fan of rap music. And yeah, that's true. I wouldn't call myself a fan of rap music. Heck, I struggle to kind of get into Hamilton based on that regard. I mean, Hamilton's a very well polished show from what I saw. Well, I watched the first half of it. The rapping it did get on my nerves a bit. I can't deny, but that's obviously the way they chose to make it, and that's fine. With this, I actually don't mind it too much because it adds to the kind of eeriness. I mean, I suppose it is a bit laughable in places. Maybe it is the light relief that we needed. It's kind of a very weird and individual way to kind of introduce the circus. Maybe it doesn't completely work, but I don't mind it. Like I don't think it's a highlight of the story or anything. I think it's fine, but maybe it's overused. Maybe having it once at the beginning would have been fine. But yeah, it doesn't bother me too much. But if they did it more, then it probably would. But yes, and the story is well paced. I think, is it 3 parts or 4 parts? I think it's 4 parts.
4. Yeah, 4.
Yes, thank you. And for me, this is just such a spectacular ending to the second season of Sylvester McCoy, and it's only going to go up from here. Well, for the most part, anyway. So yeah, I don't have much else to say. I also think that the music is really good for this story as well. It's honestly like this is a great Doctor Who story to watch on Halloween. This is a Halloween Doctor Who story. It's going to scare you. It's going to terrify you. It does basically what the show is supposed to do, and yeah. And what can I say? It features one of the best moments from Sylvester McCoy as well. Him using his spoons and him entertaining, but also he does have his dark and serious moments here as well. What's not to like? So even though the rapping, I suppose, is slightly bothersome, I can still very proudly give this story a 10 out of 10. The first 10 out of 10 of Sylvester McCoy's era. So
Yeah.
got there in the end. It was a rocky.
I think the first. Sorry, I was going to say, and I think the first 10 out of 10 you've given the story since Caves of Androzani.
Yeah. Well, that's not really my fault, is it? Look at the stories. But no, it is nice to give a 10 out of 10 again. Yeah, Colin's era was a rocky road, and it's been a while to get to this point, but good things come to those who wait. And yeah, I mean, I think, to be fair, Jack, we both kind of not given 10 out of 10s for a while. Well, actually, no, you gave Remembrance a 10, didn't you? So
yeah, no, I was just pointing out. I was saying that you and me, this is the first season that we've given a story a 10 since season 21. So it kind of shows that the show's going in a better direction towards the end. But yeah,
eventually. But yeah, that's really it. And obviously, we'll do the overall roundup of the season shortly. But yeah, very great ending to this wonderful season. And yeah, one more season of McCoy, and it's only going to go up from here.
Okay, so the greatest show in the galaxy. Well, I think this is a great Doctor Who story. I think I'm more in agreement with Alan on this one, but I do really like the greatest show in the galaxy. And the beginning of this is very interesting, where you've got these two people running away, and they see this kite in the sky, and it turns out there are two people who are trying to escape from the circus, and there's a camera on the kite that's watching them. And then we see Ian Reddington as the chief clown. He's in his limousine, and he's very creepy in this. I mean, this is a year before Jack Nicholson in Batman 1989, so the late 80s was definitely a time for clown villains. But yeah, I like all the stuff in the TARDIS where the Doctor, he's juggling and he's reading this book, and we see that Ace, she's going through some of the Doctor's outfits, and she wears his Fourth Doctor scarf briefly, which is quite nice. And we see that essentially that the Doctor gets this robot that arrives in the TARDIS, and we see that it plugs itself into the console, and it shows this circus, and it says, "Oh, come see the greatest show in the galaxy." And Ace unplugs it and says that she hates clowns, that she doesn't like circuses, and we see that the robot plugs itself back in, and we see that the Doctor, he tries to get Ace to confront his to confront her fears. Like we see that she has a fear of clowns and she has a fear of the circus, which was very interesting. And part one, we're sort of introduced to the characters that we see on this planet. That there's this person, I think it's this woman or whatever, or this man or whatever it is, who's like running this stall, and we have some interesting characters like Whiz Kid, who is this, he wears glasses and he's a huge fan of the Greatest Show in the Galaxy. I think that's sort of a parody of Doctor Who fans, stereotypical like glasses and a mega fan, and seen all their shows and stuff. But yeah,
the overzealous fans. Yeah, I think it's what he represents.
yeah, the very nerdy fans of the show. And I think the characters here are interesting. There's like one guy who comes up to the circus on this motorbike, and he reaches for a burger that's stored inside his motorbike, which is kind of cool. And Ace is interesting in this. Like, she wants to ride the motorbike, and the guy tells her to get lost. And one thing I will say about the story is it does take a while to get to the circus. That's one problem I have with the story, and why I can't give it a 10 is that it takes the whole of part one until they get to the circus. So maybe they could have hurried up with that. I mean, I know they were introducing the characters like the clown and Whiz Kid and stuff like that, but I kind of wish they got to the circus like maybe halfway through the episode. But nonetheless, I like the characters here. I like the imagination in The Greatest Show in the Galaxy, and I like all the stuff with Ace. The fact that she's trying to confront her fears, and the Doctor, wants her to, and she doesn't really want to. And I like the characters as well. Like, there's that woman who tells your fortune, and she's like, "Oh, welcome to the psychic circus." And Ace, she tries to leave straight away, and the Doctor's like, "Oh, Ace, you promised." And it's interesting how she's trying to tell people to get out of the circus. She's like, "Just get out of here." And then the chief clown comes around, and she has to basically obey him, or else she'll get killed. And we see as well that the character here, you got the ringmaster, and he has that rap. He says, "Oh, welcome, folks. I mean it from the heart, because the greatest show is about to start. It's happening right here before your very eyes. And one thing's for sure, you're in for quite a surprise, because nothing is as it seems to be in the greatest show in the galaxy." Yeah, I mean, that rapping is it's a bit cringy, to be honest. I kind of agree with Alan. I mean, it's not too bad, but at the same time, it's like, rapping's a little cringy. You didn't really need that, to be honest. And he's like, "Sit down, folks, and, we're going to show you the rest of the show," and all that stuff. But I mean, I like the stuff here with the Gods of Ragnarok. Like, you see this, little girl with her mum and dad, and they're like eating crisps at one point and popcorn and stuff. And we see that they are very creepy. They act very weird. Like, they don't act like ordinary humans. They just sort of sit there, stare, and eat some food. And we find out later that they're in fact the Gods of Ragnarok, which I thought was a good twist. I like the captain here, Captain Cook. I mean, we find out that he's a bit of a bastard, and he just wants to survive essentially. And I think he tricks Whiz Kid into going into the circus, and he tricks a few people into going in before him. And he says to the Doctor, "Oh, survival of the fittest, dear boy." And he's like this classic sort of English man or whatever. But I mean, he's an interesting character, but he is a bit of a prick. I also like the character of Mags here. Mags, I think she's very good. And we find out later on that she's in fact a werewolf, which I thought was very interesting. And we see that she's with Captain Cook, and you kind of feel bad for her because, this guy's such a dickhead. But the other characters here I think are good as well. Like I said, I quite like Ian Reddington as the chief clown, and that sort of smile that he does and everything. He's very creepy here. I mean, I don't find clowns creepy in real life, but nonetheless, he's very creepy in this story. And there's one moment I think where Ace finds the earring of somebody in the dirt, and she puts it on her jacket, and Ian Reddington as the chief clown is like, "Oh, where did you find this?" And he's like, after her, and that was pretty intense. And yeah, I mean, this story almost ended up in the same way as Shadow. It was nearly cancelled because they found asbestos in the BBC studio and they couldn't film it in there. So instead, they erected it in this tent in the car park of the BBC. And I'm glad they did do that in the end. You know, they managed to film it in the tent. I mean, it makes perfect sense. I mean, the story is focusing on clowns, and you know, you see clowns at a circus tent. And you know, I have seen a show in a circus tent many years ago where I saw some clowns, and it was quite amusing. But they do a good job here of recreating, you know, the circus tent and the clowns and everything. And we see at one point that Ace gets chased away by these clowns, and I do like the character here of Bellboy. I think the actor does a very good job, and we see that he's kind of traumatized. That we see that he built all these robot clowns that the chief clown uses, and he's kind of, you know, gone mad essentially. And we find out later on it's like some kind of psychic energy or something that's sort of making him depressed and a little bit mad or whatever it is. So that was interesting. And I do like the cliffhanger to one of the parts where you see Mags, Captain Cook, you know, he points this light on her, which is similar to moonlight, and it makes her change into a werewolf, and her transformation is really great. Although one thing I will say that is kind of cringy about this story is when you see Sylvester McCoy, and this is his sort of facial reaction, like that at the end of one of the parts where Mags is changing. That was kind of silly, that McCoy doing that over the top facial expression. But nonetheless, the story here is very good. And you know, when Mags turns into that werewolf, and then we see later on that I think she kills Captain Cook. I mean, that was quite intense, but he kind of deserved it. And it's interesting when you see Captain Cook zombified. I think he's taken over by the gods of Ragnarok, and you know he comes after the Doctor at one point, and they find this cave, and you know below the cave there's like this giant eyeball that they see, and that's connected to the gods of Ragnarok. And I like the stuff with the Doctor here. Like we see at various points, like the gods of Ragnarok, they have people entertain them, and they give them a score of 9 or 0. And we see at one point that one of the guys he impresses them with a physical stunt that he does, and then the ringmaster says, "Oh, he's going to entertain you with his favorite joke," and then they give him a 0. And I kind of feel bad for him because you know he got a 9 for doing his physical stunt, and then you know the ringmaster forced him to tell this joke, and he didn't really have a joke, so you know he ended up with 0 in the end. But yeah, like we find out that the Doctor, I think he uses this like I think it's some medallion or something like that, and he reveals that the people in the circus are in fact the gods of Ragnarok, and yeah, nothing to do with you know Thor Ragnarok, you know, yeah, nothing to do with that film, yeah. But I think the gods of Ragnarok are quite funny. I mean they're quite interesting. Like they just want to be entertained. I mean I find that interesting, and I think McCoy's very good here. Like there's that bit where there's these eggs that come out of his mouth, and he does this whole like magic act, and he's like, "Oh, you ain't seen nothing yet." And we see that he's standing on his feet, and he makes his body move around. That was very impressive. So I mean, all these like tricks he does for the gods, they find tiresome, and we see afterwards that he gets the sword. I think someone chucks the sword down the cave, and he grabs it and he uses it on them and the medallion. And we see that Bellboy, like his mind sort of becomes clear, and he uses that robot on the chief clown. And he kills them, and that's one thing I will say: the chief clown's death is a little bit anticlimactic. He just got killed by that robot. But then, yeah, Bellboy I think dies at the end or whatever. So that was kind of sad. And you've also got that bus conductor in this story. Like, there's that whole scene on the bus where you got that bus conductor that blows up, and then they have to reassemble it. So that was interesting. I thought that scene was very interesting. And the soundtrack here is pretty good as well, I will say. And the conclusion of the story is pretty good, yeah, with the Doctor's entertaining the gods of Ragnarok, and then he destroys their place and he manages to get out. And Yeah, that scene where McCoy is walking out of the tent and then there's an explosion behind him. I mean, McCoy said in a documentary that, when that happened, when the explosion happened, he didn't know if the back half of him was blown off, so he just kept on walking, and thankfully he was okay. The front and the back of him was fine, but yeah, I mean, some subscriber pointed out to me. Someone said to me like, "Oh, were they taking turns to kill each other in this season and in season 26?" Because McCoy, he nearly got killed by that explosion, and then later on in Battlefield, Sophie Aldred, she's in that tank full of water, and she nearly died because um the glass in the tank was bulging, and McCoy noticed it, and there was a crack in the glass, and he managed to get her out before the water pushed her through the glass. So yeah, some risk taking here, this story, and then the next story, Battlefield, in the next season. But I think it's a really great story. The ending, I think, is great. Where he sort of confronts her fears, and I think she's like kind of no longer scared of clowns afterwards. And I thought that was a great ending where the Doctor, he just walks out of that tent like a badass with the explosion behind him. And yeah, I think my only complaints for the greatest show in the galaxy, why I can't give it a 10, is some of that cringy rapping, and also it takes a bit too long, I think, to get to the actual circus tent. It takes them like the whole of part one. So, yeah, you could have fixed that. But apart from that, I think it's a really great Doctor Who story. You got a great villain in Ian Reddington as the chief clown. McCoy's great. I like the exploration of Ace's character a lot more in the story. I also like Mags and Captain Cook. And, for me, it's not McCoy's best story, but it is definitely one of his best. It's a very, very good Doctor Who story. And like Remembrance of the Daleks, it's, going in the right direction for the show. So I'm going to close off by giving The Greatest Show in the Galaxy a very solid 9 out of 10. So, yeah.
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 So now we come to the end of season 25. We've all talked about all 4 stories in this season. So, Alan, give us your ranking and your overall score out of 40 for this season, and give us your brief thoughts on season 25.
Sure. Well, for me, season 25 was a 50-50 split for Sylvester McCoy, but at least that is an improvement over his previous season. His first season, I only liked 1 story out of 4. That was Dragonfire. This season, I like 2 stories out of 4. So it's an
Getting
improvement.
there.
It's definitely an improvement. Even though I realize I'm in the minority about the story Remembrance of the Daleks. I know. I just think it's a so-so story in my opinion. But hey, if you guys love it, that's great. But anyway, I give Remembrance of the Daleks 5 out of 10. Sorry, that's the best I can give it. The Happiness Patrol, I give 8 out of 10. Silver Nemesis, easily the worst story of the season. I give 4 out of 10. And The Greatest Show in the Galaxy, definitely the best story of the season. I give 9 out of 10. So I would rank them at number 4, Silver Nemesis. Number 3, Remembrance of the Daleks. Number 2, The Happiness Patrol. And numero uno, The Greatest Show in the Galaxy. So yeah, I mean, this is definitely an improvement for Sylvester McCoy, and I also think McCoy has definitely matured in the role. I think this season he has a better handle on the role this time. I mean, I thought he was fine, really, from certainly from Dragonfire onwards, he was good. I mean, I also liked his performance in Paradise Towers, although unfortunately he started out with a crap story, Time in the Ranny. He got a so-so story with Paradise Towers, although his performance was better. Then he got a crappy story again with Telt and the Bannermen, and then he got what I thought was a very good story with Dragonfire. But I think by this point, by this season now, he's settled in the role and quite comfortable in the role, and he's a very good Doctor. Again, he definitely reminds me of Patrick Troughton, who McCoy has always said is his favorite Doctor, and I'm sure he modeled a little bit of his own Doctor after Troughton. Not copy Troughton, but just borrow an element or two from Troughton's performance for his own performance. And he's a very likable Doctor. I just wish he was given a bigger number of good stories, but he got 1 good story last season. He gets 2 good stories this season, although some may say, well, you guys may say 2 good stories or 3 good stories, but anyway, it's definitely an improvement for him. And it's a shame that the classic Doctor Who series will only go on for 1 more season, and then that's it for Classic Who. The ratings overall just weren't good enough to push it past 1 more season. But, I tip my hat to Sylvester McCoy. He's certainly giving it his best shot. And by this point, he's a very good Doctor. And Sophie Aldred, of course, wonderful as companion Ace, although she will be the last companion of the classic series. But, she's quite likable, certainly. And, they're trying new things. And, I thought the Happiness Patrol was very enjoyable, and I thought The Greatest Show in the Galaxy was terrific. So McCoy definitely has a handful of stories that I really do enjoy, and it was great to see 2 of them in this season. And I think he will get at least a couple more really good stories next season. So yeah, I guess I look forward to the next hangout where we say goodbye to McCoy, not counting his final appearance in the Paul McGann movie, and we say goodbye to the Classic Who series. So looking forward to reviewing McCoy's final season with you guys next time.
Can I request, Jack, that we do that when we for the next hangout, once we've said our bit about season 26, can we do a sort of tribute to the classic series, like all of us say, like overall we thought of the classic series?
Yeah, that'd be nice.
Yeah, and we can also talk about the 80s as well as a decade and rank the 3 McCoy seasons. But yeah, okay, so Ollie, give us your ranking and your overall score out of 40 for this season and your overall brief thoughts on season 25.
Thank you. Well, season 25, well, it's no secret to say that it's way better than its predecessor. Season 24 was a shitfest as far as I was concerned. Well, I thought Dragonfire was okay, but the other 3 stories can go suck tits somewhere else. But season 25 was much better. It's not perfect. It's, for me, very 50-50. It's a mixed bag. I like half the season, but I don't like the other half. So I'd say it was decent. Like, the season was decent overall, but it could have been better, could have been worse. It's just kind of middle of the road for me. Excuse me. As for how I would rate them and rank them, well, at the bottom, number 4 is Silver Nemesis, which I gave a 3 out of 10. Number 3 would be The Happiness Patrol, which I also gave a 3 out of 10. And number 2 is Remembrance of the Daleks, which I gave a 9 out of 10. And then Greatest Show in the Galaxy is number 1 at 10 out of 10. So overall, that adds up to 10 out of 9 is 19, plus 3 is 22, plus 3 is 25. 25 out of 40. So it's over the halfway mark, which is much better than last time, where I only gave, 8 out of 40. So,
Ollie,
yeah.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. I forgot to give my final score. My final score was 26 out of 40. So very comfortably over the halfway mark. It was overall a good season. Yeah.
Well, that's great. That's great. So, yeah, it's like at least the ratings have gone up for both of us. That's amazing, and it's in a similar kind of area. Like I said, the season 25, it's not perfect. It's very mixed. I think, like I said, I think the Happiness Patrol, well, the Crappiness Patrol is crap, personally for me. And even though it has good ideas, but Silver Nemesis is even worse. Silver Nemesis is just shit. Terrible 25th anniversary special, if you can call it that. The other 2, however, are great. Remembrance of the Daleks, I really like. I think it's really good. I can see why people love it. And Greatest Show in the Galaxy is just inspired. So, yeah, this is definitely edging in a better direction. I still think they were working out the kinks, and I still think they got a lot of things wrong in this season, but it was better than season 24. And it would only get better in season 26, which is sad that it's the last season of Classic Who. But like Alan said, the ratings just sadly weren't there anymore. So, yeah, I look forward to delving into the final season of Classic Who, and also the final season of McCoy. And I think McCoy actually got better as the Doctor in this season and found his feet. He sort of knows where he wants to take the character, but the show is trying to catch up with him, I think, if that makes sense. So yeah, that's kind of my closing thoughts on season 25. So yeah, I'll hand it back to Jack.
Okay, thanks, Ollie. So yeah, season 25. I think this is a very good season of Doctor Who. I think this broke the chain of bad seasons. We had a hat trick, 3 in a row, 3 bad seasons, but now we get a good season. And yeah, as for how I rate and rank the stories, well, number 4 would be Silver Nemesis at 3 out of 10. Number 3 would be The Happiness Patrol at 7 out of 10. Number 2 would be The Greatest Show in the Galaxy at 9 out of 10. And number 1 would be Remembrance of the Daleks at 10 out of 10. So overall, that's 29 out of 40 for season 25, which I think is pretty good, actually. There's only one story that I don't care for in there, and that's Silver Nemesis, but the other 3 range from good to excellent. And it's the first season where I've given a story a 10 out of 10 since season 21, and for me, it's the first good season since then. I think Andrew Cartmel, they really got their shit together for this season. They understood what they needed to do, and so I think they delivered it. I think they did a really good job here. They're definitely edging the Doctor in that darker direction, making him more mysterious. I think McCoy's also very good in this season as well. Sophie Aldred is ace, and I think the next season will definitely be the best of McCoy's 3 seasons. I think his next season is absolutely fantastic. I love season 26. So I think Andrew Cartmel, the script editor, he realized, what they needed to do for Doctor Who. They needed to make it darker, more mysterious. And I think they've achieved that. I mean, the only thing I didn't like about the season was Silver Nemesis, because it just copied Members of the Daleks, and the Candyman wasn't great, but I did like the Happiness Patrol, and I think Members of the Daleks is a standout story here. And for me, that is the true 25th anniversary story of Members of the Daleks. Forget about Silver Nemesis, because that story is crap. And that sent the Daleks out in the high, whereas Silver Nemesis sent out the Cybermen on a low. So, yeah, a very, pivotal season for the show, because it's the penultimate season. It's the 25th anniversary season as well, and the last season of the classic series with the Cybermen and the Daleks. So, yeah, is there anything you guys want to say before we close off? Or
Just to say thank you, both of you, for another great hangout. It's been fun, and it's sad that the classic series for us will be coming to an end in terms of reflections, but at least we have the new series, so we've still got plenty of Doctor Who to talk about. But it will be a real shame to say goodbye to 26 seasons of Doctor Who. But yeah, it's been a joy to sort of look through it all.
yeah,
And if I can say as well, thank you, Ollie and Jack, for all these great hangouts that we've been doing. I mean, the classic Doctor Who series is the show I grew up on, so it's been great fun talking about the classic show with you guys. And we have one more season left to go, and then after that, okay, the classic series will be over, but the Doctor will go on, even though he'll go through a little bit of a difficult period at first, but then things will get better. Of course, we'll review Paul McGann's pair of televised adventures, and then we will go on to the new Doctor Who series. But I've really been enjoying these hangouts with you guys, so thank you, Ollie, and thank you, Jack.
okay, and we'll see you next time for our reflection on the final season of the classic series, Doctor Who season 26. So until then,
Woo!
bye guys.
Bye.
Goodbye. Run.